is still waiting, so I'll bring him on in a little bit.
Good afternoon,
good afternoon. Good afternoon to our viewers. Here we come again. For the people, by the people. We come here every Sunday. But hey, you know what? We have partners that always facilitate and help us come here every Sunday and make it happen. Why don't we just say thank you?
Hi everyone! I'm Alima from the Gambia, a small but amazing country in Africa. We have such a cool history here, with ancient empires and explorers from faraway places. And guess what? My new daycare is opening soon to teach you all about it and more. It's called the Afro-British Self-Paced Learning and Child Development Centre. It's going to be an amazing place where we can explore, discover and grow at our own pace. Keep an eye out for more news about ABS. It's coming soon and it's going to be awesome.
Thank you, ABS. Thank you, ABS. This is something going to be new. And we all know early child education, I'm telling you, that is the foundation. When you see a scientist today or a doctor today, it started out somewhere. And that is that early child education. If you live in the Gambia, in the metropolitan area, watch out for this new entity coming on. Register your child. Early child education makes the difference. It really, really does.
Welcome to the Gambia, a country with a rich tradition in tourism and a beacon for investors. Experience a nation committed to progress, a home where nature's beauty is matched by the warmth of its people. A nation that is fast-growing and developing, thriving for togetherness. At the heart of this development is the Global Properties, the Gambia's premier real estate developer. Introducing you to our latest property being developed, the Lakeview, an epitome of luxury and comfort. Whether you are looking for a residence or investment property, Lakeview is the ultimate option. The Gambia is not just a place to live, it's a place to thrive. Welcome home.
Thank you, Global Properties. Without a doubt, Gambia is on the move. You're a new investor? Trust me, call Global Properties. They will hold your hand and they will make things happen.
New World International in its work to educate and sensitize overburdened communities regarding environmental justice. The meaning environmental justice is the idea that everyone should have equal protection from environmental risks and harms and equitable access to a healthy environment. NWI believes people should be meaningfully involved in decisions that affect the environment and human health. Here are some things you can do to help protect the environment. Reduce, reuse, and recycle. Volunteer for cleanups. Conserve water. Shop wisely. Use long-lasting light bulbs. Plant a tree. New World International in collaboration with the Washington State Department of Ecology will help provide training and equipment to help document and end environmental abuses. If you have any questions, contact New World at www.newworldinternational.org.
New World International, reminding all of us, hey, it's about the environment, stupid. If you don't take care of your environment, I can guarantee you the viability of this earth would be at risk. Thank you, New World International, for reminding us. Let's head on to the Bronx.
Welcome to Kid Aisha Restaurant. We are located at 1460 Boston Road in the Bronx. We are open 7 days a week from 1 to 12 a.m. We serve Senegambian food and American soul food on Wednesdays and Senegambian food all 7 days. We do dine-in, we do takeout. We serve chebijin, chebiapa. We do mafe, we do plaza, we do every other day. We have yassa ganat with rice, super kanja with white rice and fufu. We serve a lot of delicious foods. For dinner, we do dibi, chicken dibi, penta, whole chicken. We have shawarma, lots of good food. Also offer catering services for weddings, baby showers, birthday parties, whatever you need. We got it here at Kid Aisha. You can call us at 718-450-8606. And we're also on Uber Eats. And if you've ever been to Kid Aisha, make sure you leave a review. Thank you guys for supporting, and we hope to see some new faces.
Thank you, Kerry. Guys, people that live on the Bronx, you know who to call, what number to call. I'm going in fana yi Pap Samba. Bu ma gisee maafe bi, ma ne maafe mi de nuru na ma maafe kowru wala. That is some good maafe right there. Some good namada. Hey, we got my man here, Mustafa, waiting. Let's bring him on stage. Pap Samba.
His name is Mustafa.
Mustafa,
I don't know if this means Mustafa.
You know. Thank you for dialing in early. Even before my colleagues dialed in, you were on. Good to see you again.
His name is Mustafa, not Mustafa.
Let me talk to
he's a Pan-Africanist. He doesn't want his name to be too westernized.
Mustafa, how are you, my friend? Bro,
you're muted. No, he's muted.
Muted, I think.
Okay, I have muted myself. I think before you go live and you were talking with Saria, so I thought maybe this is an in-house conversation. So
Mustafa is Badibuka, so
yeah.
And you know, you gotta be careful with these investigative journalists, they call them. Maybe poking their nose all over the place.
Which is necessary.
Yeah,
true. The Gambia that we want.
Inshallah. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So how is work?
Work is good. I mean, it's Gambia, so you have to be busy a bit.
Got you.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, but busy is good. Like we say here.
Busy is good. Not if you are busy on finding the wrong things.
Oh, that is good. That is absolutely very good, because it's only finding out the wrong things, then you can right those wrongs. In the absence of finding them, you may never be able to.
But what about if you're finding them and meet a state that is not willing to right those wrongs?
But you know what?
That's another thing.
But ultimately, it comes down to the people. When people beginning to see that the wrongs are being exposed, and then nothing is getting done, and hopefully people will take it in their hands and bring about the necessary change so that those wrongs can be righted. Don't you think? So again, busy is good. Finding out the wrong things, I think, is very good.
Yeah, I mean, well, in that sense, true. I agree.
So Mustafa, it looks like you have found some wrong things that you would want to discuss this afternoon.
I mean, we've made a publication some time back, about a week or two ago, actually a little over a week.
10 days ago, to be exact.
About 10 days ago with Africa Confidential. About the importation of Russian diesel to the Gambia. And,
okay, we import Russian diesel into Gambia and we sell it. What is so bad or wrong about that, Mustafa?
Well, it's not in the mere fact that it's just a Russian diesel. It's like a trade commodity, a trading in commodity that is embargoed. That's one, which is also a big deal, because Gambia in itself has made a commitment at the United Nations General Assembly to say that Russia acted wrongly by invading Ukraine. And Russia was sanctioned by the G7, the European Union, and the United States in an effort to cripple its strength, its financing capabilities to be able to fund that war. So if we join in companies or profit in companies that are busting that sanction, in other words, we are strengthening the Russian capacity to cause more human rights violation in Ukraine. That's a moral debate. That's a moral thing. Whether or not Gambia should be involved in that, for me, as far as I'm concerned, is besides the point. I think
the problem with
Mustafa
Gambia.
has frozen there for a second.
Yeah.
So hopefully he'll come. Interesting topic, Pasamba. I think you sent me something. So last night I kind of read through it, but I'm like, look, man. I mean, I live in Baribu Kachang. We're importing some nice diesel oil at a cheap price. Why do I care about what is happening? Whatever. What do they call it? Again, sanctions against Russian oil. A lot of countries are getting involved in stuff like that. Mustafa is giving us moral diagnosis.
But does that make it right?
I mean, it depends on. I mean, just because of the United Nations, I mean, they do a lot of sanctioning. I mean, we see here the Israeli-Palestinian war.
But Musa, if you
there are a lot of things that are happening immorally.
This
comes down to countries are making decisions what is in their interest.
This what frustrates me sometimes, Musa, in trying to be the devil's advocate in this. You are part of an institute. No, let's just be fair about this. You're part of. No. You are saying, but again, what it does is excuse an inexcusable thing. You are part of an organization. They agreed to something. You agreed to that. And then decided to go the back way to do the wrong thing. So it happens
all the time. Countries, whether it's China, whether it's there are countries. All I'm saying is we all know that United Nations, it is what it is. I mean, they make sanctions, they make declarations, whether it's like you shouldn't be buying Iranian oil because of A, B, and C. I mean, at the end of the day, Gambia as a country, we are going to make decisions, supposedly, that's in our interest. So as far as I'm concerned, maybe there's a lot more to it, because I'm sure there's another dimension, the corruption part of it. How does it impact an average Joe who happens to live in Baribu Kachang? I mean, but this sanctions from the United Nations.
Let me ask you a question, Musa. Do you have a problem with Israel willfully violating every sanction that is placed against it?
Absolutely, I do.
So then why do you think that it's okay for us to violate?
What I'm
so
saying,
to me, wrong is wrong. I have a problem with the United States
when it comes to geopolitics.
When it comes to Israel,
when it comes to geopolitics, people are going to make. Let's say, for instance, when I say something like Israel, I have issues with them. I mean, you're talking about murderers killing young children in Gaza. For me, again, as a Gambian, if sanctions were, let's say, leveled against Israel, then maybe my position would be a little bit different. But let's see, my man Mustafa will come and give us the other dimension, and that is the corruption part of it.
But then there is a bigger. I think there is a bigger issue here, and to just limit it to, in fact, just Israel and the United Nations. There was an investigation being done by the police, and according to this report, they had orders from the State House to stop it. So this is the whole thing. Who was benefiting from this? Were they doing it in the interest of the Gambia?
That's what I'm saying, Mr. Jao. That's what I'm saying.
You are just trying to.
That is the other aspect that I am waiting for Mustafa to delve into it. But just this other one about the morality issue, United Nations laying sanctions that somehow, Mustafa, good to have you back.
Yes, it was saying my phone was overheating. I had to transfer from my phone to.
Now, you better worry about computer overheating, because that is one we've been having problems with.
Anyway, well, I hope not. Yeah, so like I was just explaining. Go ahead.
I say, as you were saying.
Yes. So, I mean, the issue of morality, it's an important debate to have, but, pretty much academic. But what's important for me is that the diesel was brought into the country. It was sold by a company that was not registered to trade in petroleum products in the Gambia. And this company was using two front companies that were also not registered or licensed to trade in petroleum products in the Gambia. So they sold the product, $30 million worth of cargo, which is $1.2 billion, paid no tax, paid no fine for illegal trading. And the shabby excuse was that, well, they were international traders. But these were international traders who were domiciled for a year in the Gambia, issuing releases from the depot. They were locally established through two front companies that were locally here, present, trading. And so GRA didn't collect a dime from them. PIRA did not find them for illegal trading. The police attempted to investigate them and they were asked to stand down. That doesn't look good. That is not a moral issue. That is illegal. See? So that's what I was getting to. I mean, regarding whether or not we support the US sanction or the G7 sanction or the EU sanction, it's a very valid debate. I mean, we should have. From my own point of view, I don't think that the US sanction was sanctioned because, there is a problem between Russia and America. I mean, I'm against America and its activities as regards to Israel, but I am supporting American decision regarding its position on Russia, because Russia should not just, no country should just get up and decide that another country is annoying me and I'm going to invade them. Yeah, so, exactly. So, those are the kind of issues, and those issues are highlighted in the story. And, the same old corruption cases where, institutions fail to do their job, people who are hired to do their job or fail to do their job. And so an institution just comes into the Gambia, does as it pleased, and left without us getting any money from them. For me, that is what we should all be outraged about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Pop Samba.
No, because Mustafa, I'm so glad you said this, because like Musa's argument about every country should look at its geopolitical interests or geoeconomic interests or whatever. In this case, what was Gambian interest in this? Because the Gambia as a nation did not benefit a penny, based on your reporting, from this whole illegal enterprise. If it was illegality that the government said, you know what, we are going to do this, we are at least going to get something from it, then it was worth it. But this was based on my own deduction, reading this. Few individuals decided to, you know what, we are going to engage in this illegal activity, get our money in our pockets at the expense of our nation, and then to have the State House tell people, according to the reporters, your sources, to say, you know what, back off from that investigation. I believe it's the height of criminality, if you want to look at it. So who has benefited from it? We are not a serious country by any stretch of imagination, because this can only happen in the Gambia. If the Gambia people,
here we come again. 40 people.
Luma, you know what? To me, I'm not interested in placating anything. I'm not interested.
I can't hear you, Coach. Am I missing or something?
For your question. Do you have one?
I have an opinion to share. That's what I was sharing.
Oh, I thought you had I thought there was.
And that was to rebut what you were trying to allude to. No nation, whether in the United States, whether China, whether Israel, whether
Musa, let him finish, though. Don't interrupt him, man.
And you know what? Say anything that you want about the United States. If they do not agree with Israel's sanctions, they will say it outright, we do not agree with it. So if they violate it, that's what's expected. When Russia does not agree with something, they will say it outright, we are not participating in this. But don't go and give people one word and then go around and use other methods to enrich individuals and then sit there. The government does not even, the whole country and our poverty did not even benefit a penny from over $1 billion that was illegally, done in that country, business or whatever it is. But anyway, sorry, and you come on.
I guess the brother doesn't have a question.
No, go ahead, Musa. Go ahead.
So, Mustafa, I have a question. Apparently, my
Yeah,
man,
go ahead.
all he has is an opinion. Clearly, I mean, I'm trying to put
valid opinions also. I mean, don't censor him. I mean,
there's no doubt.
No, he cannot. I'm not the one to be censored. Believe me.
To be honest, how this thing could happen.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, I mean, I can this whole U.S. sanction, I can put that aside. If at the end of the day, we're looking out for what our interest is as a country. Yeah. But here, what I'm looking at, you're talking about a cartel comes into town, sold petroleum, no licenses, nothing was obviously the GRA did not collect any taxes. How could that happen?
Well, I mean, I think that based on what we know right now, and based on the directives that the police have received to stand down, seems to tell us what the influence of the business folks were. So, for example, you see, the Gambia Petroleum itself has a regulation, and they have a storage agreement that they usually would sign with companies that are trading with them. So they call it a storage agreement. Now, this storage agreement itself also prohibits the depot from doing business with sanctioned entities. And never mind, like I said, what the international geopolitics is. If we said this is the rule, that's the rule.
Correct.
So the depot's own storage agreement forbids it to have business or do business with sanctioned entities. This includes the US sanctioned by the British government, Singaporean government, the UN Security Council, and all this. It also compels or requires institutions that are going to do business with the depot to declare if they are sanctioned entity or affiliates of sanctioned entities. Now, this regulation was flatly ignored because very early into their operations, the FIU had provided some intelligence product which was available to the entire state machinery, including the Gambia Police, the Central Bank of the Gambia, on the operations and the financial transactions of this company. And also some slight detail regarding their sanctions, even though the FIU didn't go as verifying the source of the origin of the exportation. So, for example, the FIU...
Can you help us here with the acronym? FIU meaning what?
The Financial Intelligence Unit.
Okay.
When the Anti-Money Laundering Act came into being in 2012, it established the Financial Intelligence Unit. And so any transaction that exceeds a certain limit, say, for example, $10,000, the financial institutions in the Gambia, whether they are banks or otherwise, are required to report to the FIU. And the Financial Intelligence Unit deals with these products, and they do detailed reports regarding these transactions, whether they are coming from legitimate businesses, whether the business activities matches the income that they are sending, and all of that. So they process this intel and share it with security institutions, and mention where suspicions are, matters that requires further investigations, where so state institutions are compelled to act on these leads. Mm-hmm. And the FIU provided this on this Russian business as early as October 2023. But Apogee wraps up its business in the Gambia in May 2024. And in fact, they didn't just wrap up. Pura just didn't license them and they applied for it because there was an ongoing court case regarding their dispute with Creed, which is one of their local partners. Otherwise, they would still have been here. So what seems to be the case is that state institutions just simply refuse to do their job for probably financial gains reasons. I mean, in my experience, nobody just refused to do your job because you just refuse to do your job. You refuse to do your job mostly because you are motivated to do so. So
Mustafa, Did you talk to Pura and GRA? And when you, can I ask a question? Bro, don't worry about the way I call people. When you talk to GRA or Pura, did you talk to them? Let's say the Commissioner General. What was his reaction? Or
No. I mean, they didn't respond. We sent email to them, but they didn't reply. But of course, if you are following a parliamentary inquiry, you would have seen that GRA had made this flimsy excuse that Apoji is an international trader. GRA actually made a half-hearted attempt to be part of the Creed Energy's lawsuit so that they can recover the tax. For me, this is bullshit. I mean, they could have brought in their own lawsuit and take these people to task and say, because, for example, company has to be, if company is legally registered and legally licensed to trade in business, it's like a person, it's like an identity. It can be sued, it can sue, it can be sued. Now, when it does not exist like that, it doesn't, when it's not registered in law, it does not exist. So how can you, Apoji is an international trader, so-called international trader. You come to the Gambia with 36,000 metric tons of diesel. You dump it at the depot. You said, okay, I am stopping at the border. Okay, what are you doing? Oh, I'm selling through two front companies. But these two front companies, as far as our laws are concerned, don't exist because they are not licensed. So who is trading? It's you, the international trader. Because the companies you claim to be trading through just don't exist under the eyes of our law. They are not licensed. So what are you talking about? So what do you mean by I just come and I stop at the border? Which border? I mean, so Gambia, we used to this. When people come, educated people, they come with these stupid terms and they make everybody confused. So when you watch they make themselves confused. So when you watch, for example, the parliamentary this thing, and you see a minister says this is a bonded warehouse, it's a depot, this is an international border. What is that? That's nonsense. I mean, the point is that it's a business, it's a warehouse. Somebody has come and put a product there, and that product was being sold in the Gambia. This is the essential fact. So forget about all the nice terms that makes educated people feel important. I mean, even journalists, we also have such terms. We can use them, but they are useless, right? I mean, yeah, the point is that they were trading through front companies. These front companies are not licensed. So they literally don't exist. So you have two options. And I think either of these two is very valid, which is one, you hammer them for illegal trading, and you are going to fine them whatever the law requires. And I think that should be hefty. I mean, for $30 million.
Definitely.
And you also hammer them for corporate tax because they were selling the product in the Gambia. And if you are selling the product in the Gambia, and you are selling it through two front companies that are domiciled in the Gambia and they are not registered, you are trading yourself. So we should hammer them too for
just for my maybe my ignorance. So what is the excuse for not paying taxes? That's the part that I'm a little bit confused about. What is GRA?
At the depot, what usually happens is that you bring your product and you put it there.
You keep it there. You pay a fee.
Yes, keep it there. No, you don't pay anything. No, you just put it there. Now, when you come, you put it there. So when, for example, all the local oil marketing companies want product, they contact you, they pay, and when they are lifting that product is when the depot gets its share of payment. So the depot gets payment, you pay tax on it, then you release them. The depot release it, tax is paid on it. And so the people who are lifting, exactly. So these people are applying the same argument that we are also international traders. So we bring our product to the depot. So, but they are also involved in lifting it, and because they were trading locally through two front companies that were not licensed.
So these companies are like lifting it.
Agora or Adax or any of these because those guys are not here. They just bring their product, they keep it at the depot. Jar Oil and others who want product, they contact them, they pay them, they send their message to the depot and say, X, Y, and Z paid this
Correct.
much amount, this much amount to them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So those guys will pay whatever they said. I mean, they call it throughput, I think, and then they release the product. So that's how it
the
works.
payment
So,
of the fees and the taxes, they never happen.
sorry?
The payment of the fees and the taxes, when these oils were being lifted from the depot, that never happened.
No. As far as I know, no.
And then
because custom duties, of course, were paid, as far as I'm told, but the corporate tax bit was not paid. So what GRA was taking them to task with is the corporate tax bit, that you were operating in the Gambia as a business. So
Correct.
you needed to pay corporate tax.
And they said no.
Yeah, they said no. But essentially also, let's even put the tax issue aside, which is probably they would call it a gray area. I think that's what they, kind of things. But how about the fines? Why didn't they pay the fine? PIRA claimed to have paid them, claimed to have charged them a fine in October, and around October, when they were aware of their operations, and asked them to cease operations.
Mm-hmm.
But they continued to operate and they never paid any fine. So why was that? They have to be protected.
Somebody is getting
paid.
paid.
Exactly. So why would the police also start to investigate them and police be asked to stand down? Why? You see, those are the kind of issues that tells you not everything is normal with this. And if you check the WhatsApp communications, because, there was a court case between them, and that was sort of a pie chick victory, when two people fight to death. So they were all involved in trying to destroy each other. So they make a lot of the affidavits, court records, all the things they submitted in the courts were so important because they involve WhatsApp conversations, and these WhatsApp conversations were useful in understanding how these people think of Gambian institutions. In fact, one of them said, we will buy our way through, and another one says, I know our people are greedy, but we have to be careful, something like that. If you check the WhatsApp conversations, I mean, they are interesting. I mean, it takes you into the mind of these people, and you understand the two Ghanaians, I mean, it takes you into their mind, and, you kind of have a feeling that this guy's, it's like the Chinese guy told me in the Dr. Banja case, that in your country, once you have money, you can just do anything. And that seems to be the truth. I mean, and I think essentially that's what happened in this case.
Brother Maron.
Mustafa, thank you very much.
Sarian, thank you for pronouncing his name right. Thank you.
If everybody book say Mustafa, if Fana say Mustafa, and Kianga said this. I mean, it all depends.
Yeah. I mean, Tarian cannot miss it anyway. So
no, absolutely not.
That is not supposed to be possible.
Yeah. So Mustafa, I think my question is, so obviously the police did an investigation and they were asked to stop. But do you ever find out who told them to stop?
That's the $1 million question.
No, this is a complex issue. I have had names, and some of the names they're not people who are supposed to exercise that kind of control or authority. And those things do happen here. Like, you can have a wife of an individual or very powerful, or you can have a brother of a person in authority very powerful and can call shots. But then the problem is that when you go in public with that kind of name, it's important to have some kind of a documentary proof, so that in case you are wrong about it, so that there will be no possibility of you being wrong about it, Otherwise, it's also okay because the onus eventually is in the authorities to investigate and establish criminal wrongdoing. But from our own standpoint, because we didn't have enough evidence to pinpoint the exact individual, we just had names, and the closest was the former Interior Minister, Siaka Sonko. And we reached out to Siaka. Siaka was dismissive that this does not fall under his responsibility. I mean, he could not simply have asked the police on operational matters to stop. But for us, what we had was that there are names we were giving at the office of the president who contacted Siaka to contact the police to stop. But essentially, I have used my contacts to reach out to various people in the police through other intermediaries and myself, but nobody seems to be able to pinpoint a specific hand to say, this is the guy, So you have few names coming up many times, but there is no, because usually these things are done through phone calls. So documents are easy to get because you can always utilize contacts to get, but when it's phone call, that's problematic.
Then it becomes CSA.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. But it's enough to say that, because what the police said is actually a documentary proof that the police did say that we were asked to stand down, or we were asked to hold the investigation. That's for us, that is enough. Because that should not have happened. Now, who told them now? That's on the State House now. If they have any goodwill to the political will to investigate themselves and punish the person for wrongdoing, because that should not have happened, because that person should bear the responsibility of what happened. And also should be charged for economic crime, because I believe that the state lost revenue. And so that's essentially the issue.
Yeah, so I think the other question I have was obviously you mentioned the ones that brought the the product into the country are not registered entity, but somehow they were able to put these products into the tank, and somehow there were local companies who actually lifted these products to get it to the customers in the local market. I mean, I know Ja Oil was mentioned, but was there any other ones that were also involved in this? And how did they get
there were others who were aggrieved. So Ja Oil was aggrieved because, I mean, if a company comes here, you guys are involved, you are local businesses, you just come and have a competitor that's all too powerful. I mean, Russian oil is all over the place now. I mean, it's a recent phenomenon, especially in West Africa. After the US sanction came into existence, I mean, the G7, European Union, even the EU market, Russian oil gets smuggled inside. So let alone West Africa, where, I mean, but we can't trade in Russian oil, but I guess it's the way it's done. So yeah, I mean, they were aggrieved. I mean, because they all of a sudden faced a party who filled the depot with their diesel, and for them, they didn't have space where to keep theirs. So, and they were literally forced to buy from them. So they didn't like that.
Oh,
I guess that was the issue. Yeah, they didn't like that.
Thank you.
So, Mustafa.
Yeah.
Could it be that the illegality of the whole enterprise made it absolutely impossible for the government to have a very public investigation of this matter, given that our government pretty much relies entirely on budget support from some of these institutions or countries that they claim to have sanctioned Russia? And maybe those countries would have frowned on this importation going in the country or so. Could that be the case? That was why the government decided, you know what, stand down. We don't even want to offend people anymore. Mustafa, are you there, or your phone is too hot again? Musa, are you there?
Yeah.
No.
No. I mean, you ask a question. What am I going to do?
I am here. Can
okay,
you hear
did you
me?
hear the question?
Yes, I have. I've heard the question, yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we are hearing you.
Yeah, so no, what I was saying is that, I mean, either ways, the American, exactly. So what I was saying is that either way, yeah, so either ways, the traders, whether it's American or otherwise, we are going to be aware of the hello.
Yeah, we can hear you very well.
You're kind of going in and out. We can hear you though.
Set as default.
It's a body bunker on the Ochiba call it. So
what is going on here?
Yeah, so while we wait for
it my internet or something is wrong.
I think maybe it's your internet.
Yeah, is the
maybe
internet.
there is this delay that you are experiencing. Can you hear us though? Apparently not.
But Musa, to me, this points to
that's an interesting question though. But I would have thought,
hello everyone. Is it my internet or something is wrong?
Now we can hear you. Can you hear us? Everybody can hear you, Mustafa. To borrow from Musa. Mustafa.
Okay. Okay. All right. So what I was saying is that because of the sun.
Okay. Like our Dr. Barrow is always saying, computer with Tangagu.
No, but to me, like I was saying, I think this points to a bigger issue because Mustafa from Malagan to now the Republic, they've been, a plethora of, cases of alleged corruption in that country. And I think if there is one thing that has become so evident, is there is no willingness, politically or otherwise, by this government to ever fight corruption. And I think there is nothing more frustrating, if you go by this report, to have the State House, in fact, inject itself in this illegality in itself. Because what that does is, and you know what is sad sometimes? When you feel that you can do this and nobody will know about it. Because it comes out. And there is the same government that has no problem now every day trying to point out what is happening in the local government thingy, calling it corruption. But you have no problem when it points to your direction to tell the police, stand down. But anyway, Mustafa, you can go ahead and answer the question if you may.
Yeah. No, what I was trying to say is that it's the FIU has lots of its partners and its product goes far and wide. Locally, also, the little Gambia is too organized to do anything, even the US embassy not to be aware of. So, yes, so I just don't know how this could be done here without anybody knowing anyway. So, we are the ones who take things very lightly and not serious with things. Other people are too serious to not be aware of things like this. But maybe, America and others also want allies, particularly at this moment. Things are thorny, so even little insignificant Gambia matters in terms of, even not for anything, at least siding with them at the UN General Assembly, on matters relating to maybe Russian war, or other things. So I don't see them being harsh on Gambia on matters like this. I think this is more like a thorny domestic issue than I see it being made a big deal by others. Of course, it will be communicated to various capitals in the US and various capitals in the world, maybe EU and others, to sort of keep an eye open, on transactions of this nature, because these institutions, these countries are interested in whatever Russia does, particularly in ways that helps it, that strengthens it financially, considering what is happening in Ukraine right now. So that's an issue. But then, locally, I mean, we have our own problem. I mean, that we need to address a matter of this nature. It goes to explain the weakness of our institutions, that just one individual can just get up and decide that the state does not need money from this one. I am the one who is going to collect money from this one. And the state institutions just don't exist to collect tax for Dabokunda, for example. So it should not be like that. I mean, because that is how it seems like. I mean, if an individual can authorize or issue an order that makes the state lose revenue, but make sure he gets personal revenue, it's like an authority giving to an individual to take state's money into his own pocket, or what is otherwise meant for state to be in his own pocket. And once you have a situation like that, the country just simply cannot develop, and you become, kind of what we've seen over the period. So I think this is a matter that should concern every Gambian. But this is something that also has been happening over the period. I mean, we've seen how Jane Commission has brought out a lot of issues, including the abuse of power, not just by Jame, but by even people around him. So I think one of the biggest mistakes we did coming into Barrow's term in 2016 was that we were so highly emotional that Jame became the enemy, and solely Jame. So even if any other individual who was working with Jame turned around to denounce Jame, we just said, okay, this is good. I mean, because he was with Jame, so Jame was the enemy. And so, but we failed to recognize that Jame and everything around him, which is the system, the infrastructure that kept him there, and the infrastructure that financed his regime, was still intact. And we didn't investigate to diagnose that infrastructure. And that is why I don't like what is happening even randomly in the Gambia, because we are doing a lot of institutions and a lot of audits and audits and audits and audits, but we never take into account the general corruption infrastructure in the Gambia, how it's happening in the local government level, how it's happening at the central government level. How do we organize the Accountant General's Department to be able to make sure that audited financial statements of government are prepared on time so that the audits are not late? How do we empower the National Audit Office to be able to audit all the state institutions on time? How do we make sure the Account Department of Public Enterprises are so that they are able to prepare their statements and they are audited according to the financial regulations, according to the, how do they call it, the Financial Something Act 2014. These are things we just don't do in the Gambia. So that is why the institutions are not functioning. So when institutions are not functioning, then you become a kind of a quasi-pariah state. I mean, a semi-pariah state where, I mean, we have to rely on individuals. And if individuals are there, it works. They are not there, it doesn't work. If you have a boss on top who is corrupt, can just order you to, well, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. So that there is no clear pattern of behavior or sets of actions to be done by anyone. There is no clear vision or policy in the industry. So I think we just don't get the things right. I think that's what this shows.
Okay, we just don't get the things right. We've seen from independence to date, the Jawara government was accused of corruption. That was what Yahya Jammeh relied on to overthrow that government and then come up with this accountability and transparency. And of course, we saw what happened under Jammeh in terms of corruption. People focus more on the human rights violations. but the corruption itself was at an other level.
Yeah.
Barrow came, they did the Jane Commission, and they were talking about the corruption, the level of corruption on the Jammeh. Now, there is a widespread belief among Gambians that the Barrow government is no different when it comes to corruption. But the question is, you are an investigative reporter. I know you don't only focus on what is happening, but studies things that have happened before. Based on your analysis of the Gambia from independence to date, how widespread is corruption in that country?
You know,
actually, let's look at the current situation now. How widespread?
I was having a conversation with somebody. It's like, because I also have friends in government, and we were having a conversation, and we came to talk about anti-corruption commission, and the person told me, it's difficult. I mean, who do you think we would put at the anti-corruption commission when it comes to be established? and that sort of tells you the general state of affairs. I personally, I was talking to some couple of people, diaspora folks. We are discussing about some things that I am doing and how they could support it. And we come to discuss about the state of affairs in the Gambia. And I told them that it's disappointing because most of the individuals I have come to have very deep respect for, I come to find out these guys are not any different from the people they're criticizing. And that is what even emboldens even Barrow. I mean, it's sad to say, but Barrow knows a lot of folks who are talking about him are not really different from him. They don't hold a higher ground. They're not any significantly different from him. I mean, I personally have looked into several things that we have not published yet, whether it's Jammeh's assets and how they were handled, and other matters, connected matters. I mean, this country, you get disappointment, one story after the other, depending on individuals who you hold that huge high esteem, and you come to find out that they are involved, they have their hands in the tilt, or they've done questionable behavior. The problem in the Gambia is character and integrity. I mean, you have if you have individuals who have there is very little. One time I have heard someone who mocked that Khalifa is not a successful person. He's still in his father's house, really. And this guy is a very so-called respected individual in the Gambian society. And I was right there thinking, this guy, so Khalifa should just be in a mansion. I mean, he should be in a mansion, maybe at Fajara or Bruford Heights, in some land owned by Bruford people, or maybe in Bakau, where he would get a state allocation. If he wants, he will get it, or somewhere. I mean, but essentially, my point is, this is the kind of thinking. This is who the true Gambian thinks. This is how we need to. Somebody calls it primitive accumulation of wealth. So that, I mean, I'm not saying you need to be rich, but if you see successful societies, they don't have many rich people. They just have systems that are built, and you have people, the government, most people are middle class and they survive from one paycheck to another. But they've built systems that work, that make sure that people are able to survive like that. But in this society, I mean, you look around, most people who are floating above water are public servants. And, and that is not the case in other countries. I mean, so that's the sad story.
So Mustafa.
Yeah.
Mustafa.
As I listen to you,
yeah,
I mean, it's getting a little bit deep and interesting, and that is, we have a tendency to say, oh, we have an institution problem.
Yeah.
Or we'll say, well, this is just the nature of Gambians, who we are. We are all just that.
Mm-hmm.
You look at this situation that you just, I mean, okay, take these so-called sanctions, Russia, I mean, put that aside. And I'm not trying to minimize it in any way. I was just trying to play devil's advocate. But let's look at the gist of the matter, and that is the corruption part of it. Clearly, someone is getting paid. We can blame institutions all we want. We can blame, that is the nature of the Gambian character. But at the end of the day, I mean, we are going to lay this at the doorstep of someone, an individual. If this government believes, of course, you can say, oh, we don't have any evidence of corruption. But if a government says that they are committed to fight corruption, and then something like this is happening, and at the State House, at the helm is President Barrow.
Yeah.
One doesn't have any other choice but to lay it right down at his doorstep. Because if we wanted this thing to be investigated, this thing will be investigated.
I agree with you.
I'm not sitting here.
Well, I agree with you on that. I mean, I agree with you. Like they say, the buck stops at the, how do they say? The buck stop at the president or something like that, right? I think that's the expression. So, the point is, he has to be blamed for everything that's happening in the country. I mean, he's the captain of the ship. So I blame him 100%. But I'm just also saying that, you see, we have to diagnose the system. We have to know how this whole thing came about. We have to know why we are where we are. And then we will be able to make progress. Because otherwise, you are going to change Barrow with another Barrow. And I'm telling you, Gambia will not survive. Gambia will not survive.
I don't mean to cut you. I don't mean to cut you. I made that argument a couple of weeks ago that the country is not interested in replacing Barrow. And I mean, you have to listen to it very clearly. We're not interested in replacing Barrow, because we all know that replacing Jammeh and we bring in Barrow, I mean, you know, in as much as we make argument that the country, we are better off, but we know that the problem still remains.
You see, one thing we are a going national security crisis. You see, I deep down, just earlier today, I was thinking to myself, I was saying, you see, during the COVID presented us an opportunity to envision what Gambia is going to be like if orders don't exist. Our entire existence as a country is reliant on the existence of other countries. Entire existence. Gambia is not existing as a country. We are surviving. We are leaning on others. So, for example, if Russia and America decided they're going into a nuclear Armageddon, and they started nuking each other, and the international trade collapses, we just have 1 month to survive. 1 month, there will be no rice in the Gambia, there will be no product in there will be no produce. We're going to die. Hunger, yes, definitely. I mean, anybody knows that. So this is not a state right now. It's not a viable state that can exist. I'm not saying there is no state that exists. Mighty United States needs microchips from Taiwan, small Taiwan. I am not saying there is a state that is not reliant on other countries, but we don't get the elementary things that is like, for example, food, water, food. You don't get those things. Those are elementary things for the survival of a nation. But in this country, the conversation is not at that level yet. So the conversation is too parochial and too partisan. It's not nationalistic in a sense that we haven't sit down to recognize the collective threat of our own existence. So, for example, currently, we are only January away from having 5 reckless presidents in the world, all heading nuclear states. We're just January away.
So who are those?
By January, the list will be complete. Donald Trump will take White House.
Putin is there.
He will be ruling your country.
Netanyahu.
He will be
The
ruling
Iranians.
your country.
You're right.
Netanyahu is there. Kim Jong-un is there.
Yeah.
Russia, Vladimir Putin is there. I mean, he's just started sending ballistic missiles to Ukraine. He can just start sending nuclear warheads anytime. You never know. And you have Donald Trump, who could just decide that North Korea, the FAD, whatever he calls him, shouldn't send his people to Ukraine to fight alongside Russia, and decide, we're going to target them and start sending nukes. You never know. I mean, if a situation like that happens, this country will not survive. Because one, we don't even have 1 year worth of produce to survive in this country, because we are not cultivating anything. We're just bringing it. So the elementary things that makes a country survive, we don't pass those basic tests. I'm not talking about housing. That's a luxury at this point. I'm talking about food and water. Food and water. Yeah, it's luxury. So I'm talking about food and water. And there is no plan for that, because you see, what we talk about planning in the Gambian context is not a plan. So for example, in a normal country where you have a plan, you say, okay, in this country, we consume, let's say, 250,000 tons of rice every year. And now, this year, we have a plan to improve production by, let's say, 50%, which means, let's say, maybe we are going to cultivate 100,000 tons. And this is how much investment that needs. And that investment is set aside, and that's in the budget. This is the land mass we need. We identify those areas, that is a plan. What we have here is rhetoric. So you have a bunch of people who think they are very educated. Of course, they can speak very good English. They go and say very high-sounding languages, things that folks like me struggle to understand. And they go and talk about a private sector-led growth, this thing, that thing, a bunch of things. That's what we've been doing from independence.
Mustafa, you are right. Or those educated people pronouncing our names funnily, just so that they can sound Western.
So Mustafa, I think Mar is joining us as well.
Yes, and thank you, Mar. Mar just arrived in the Gambia from South Africa and just decided to join too. So we really appreciate that.
I mean, I want to kind of expand the conversation a little bit. Obviously, you're basically saying that we have institutional problems, and then our problem is planning. And now we see our neighbors, Senegal and what they are doing. Here they have decided to, I would say, castigate all the former politicians of yesteryear and say, these people are the problems. They're trying to now hang their hopes on a new generation of leadership. I mean, what's the takeaway that our country can learn from what is happening in Senegal? Is that the way to kind of maybe start looking at our situation? And maybe now is the time to, get rid of all these old politicians and bring in new breed of, and at least people that we can hang our hopes on. How do you read what is happening in Senegal? And do we need to kind of see that as an inspiration or something that we can emulate?
So, Senegal didn't actually do anything unusual. I mean, what we've done in the Gambia in 2016 is more sophisticated than anything Usman Sonko could dream of. I mean, Macky Sall and Jammeh are two different things. Macky Sall didn't have junglers going in the middle of the night to go and kill people. Macky Sall didn't close down radio and newspapers in the large scale that Jammeh did. The kind of censorship Jammeh had in the Gambia, he literally exiled media. He literally exiled media. Jammeh didn't, Macky Sall didn't have that kind of. So what Sonko did, it's an inferior revolution compared to what we've done in 2016. I mean, far inferior. But the problem is in the Gambia is that we do not keep the momentum. Now, I don't believe in change inspired by politics or politicians. I think that Gambia needs leadership at every cadre. So, for example, you need journalists who are going to recognize the crucial importance of journalism in the Gambia and make sure we're going to do this the way it's supposed to be done. Then you have military folks who recognize the importance of their service and adjust. The police folks. We need leadership. And that leadership is not just having the president. Now, there are two ways you can get this. You can get this through a social revolution, or you can get this through a political revolution. If, for example, you have a president out of a miracle, and I would say out of a miracle, quite frankly, who comes into power and say, for example, and look and identify all these deficiencies, and he imposes certain sets of ideals on the rest of the society, this change is possible. Otherwise, you will need a certain kind of social revolution where people would be coached into a certain sets of thinking over a period of 20 years, then the society will change. Then when society changes, naturally the leadership changes. These are the two options we have. But in terms of leadership in the Gambia, often we emphasize too much on politics. Oh, we need a presidential candidate who is this, who is that, who is this. Even if you have a good president, if you are not able to have a good team, it's not going to work. And so in the Gambia, there is just total lack of leadership. Like, I mean, when we talk about security sector reform, for example, I mean, have you seen the military taking it upon themselves to make moves that are so clear in close to 10 years now, so clear that we will know, okay, military is completely reformed and that they've done enough background checks. We know the identity of individuals, we know the qualification of people involved, and that morale of the average foot soldier is boosted, and such that the capacity has got to a level that now we can say, okay, ECOWAS, you can leave. Military can make that decision. But how would you make that decision if you can't even convince your commander-in-chief that he needs to trust you or he can trust you? You see the problem. Now you have a police force that is the way it is. I mean, the way literally it's under jamming. I mean, we covered during the COVID crisis, we covered a deputy accountant general who was just the executive directive was issued for him to put something like 36,000 euros in his bag, in a bag, and literally take it to airport to give it to a Bissau diplomat who supposedly bring 3 boxes of COVID organic into the Gambia. This was just during COVID. You see, how do we have change in the Gambia? Would you have faced this kind of? You are deputy accountant general. That is like, you know what? Accountant general is like, is the institution in charge of the accounting of the government.
Yeah. Now, I know we have to expand this conversation a little bit and bring in.
So we need a general, like Barrow used to say. His favorite expression was overhaul. But unfortunately, I think he doesn't believe in that.
You said his favorite word was what? I missed that.
Overhaul.
You see, Pastor, but now you're laughing because of the way the pronunciation come out.
No.
We were quite close because I mean,
he's not saying overall, to overhaul the whole system.
Overhaul.
Yes.
Overhaul.
But you are laughing. But anyway.
No. No, I don't have a problem with Gambian. I have your problem with your Sabali pronunciation. So, Mustafa.
But you are laughing at the president's pronunciation of overhaul.
No. I like listening to
Why?
Barrow.
I think Mustafa, we need to bring you back again because
Mustafa,
I get a little bit confused. I mean, when I listen to you, you downplay the role of the leader, but at the same time, you would say that it has to come down to the leadership. You know what I'm saying? So this is where
I presented to you 2 options. I presented to you 2 options. Like I say, there was a Facebook post one time. I said that we need an army of conscientious citizens. Now, there are two ways you can change a society. Once you have an army of very enlightened citizenry, the leadership just does not have a choice. It becomes a cogs in the wheel. They have no choice. Whatever the citizens...
I think what you were saying is a little bit more utopian to have citizens. I mean,
yeah, it's not utopian. He's speaking in very clear terms.
It's not utopian.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, the school line of thoughts. What he's saying is the responsibility lies with the president. He called the shots, but at the bottom, there are institutions, and he is tasked employing folks who are competent and capable and exert that character and integrity. But overall, he's in charge. These folks are executing, and they are going up here, and he needs to hold them accountable based on his mandate.
You know how where it's going to get a little bit complicated, and this is what I believe has always been. It's not like we don't have institutions, all right? People are actually running those institutions. I'm saying if you do not have a leader that can hold other leaders accountable to whether it's the constitution, whether it's the rules of the game, whether it's even the budget that we are going to be talking about, it doesn't work.
But Musa,
Musa, I think you are hitting a different dimension, right? So, for example, let's break it down right now, right? So what Mustafa is saying, an army who knows their constitutional rights and knows day to day, even though they wear the uniform, but their ultimate duty is to uphold the Constitution, right? And fidelity to their fellow citizens. At the end of the day, those folks go home. They are not called private or sergeant or captain. They are called by their first names. They go back into their community, right? So what we're saying is know your role, but also uphold and safeguard those institutions. So hold on. Give me a second. By standing up, right? Huh?
I haven't said a word.
So by standing up for those values and the mission of that institution, and I think that's where, yes, Barrow is in charge. We're gonna hold him accountable. But how do you say that when you get a freaking 68 plus old leader? You took him back when you have young folks underneath him who had a long training, who are very exposed to modern democracy, but you put him at the top, and you got those folks at the bottom of it, and they could not draft what changes or what policies have they drafted to say, okay, we have to take ownership of our internal security. We got enough of economic. We're going to take this security as our own baby and implement it.
No, what I was talking about what he is talking about.
I really want us to bring Marian to the conversation because.
But Musa, here's the thing, though. Even if you have the best leadership on top, if the people that are supporting you are not guided by consensus, then it's not going to go.
It's not going to work.
No, but listen. What I think we have in the Gambia, let's just call it what it is. Let's say we have another leader other than Barrow. Another leader that is committed to fight corruption. Another leader that is willing to hold his cabinet accountable. What we are witnessing today, like this particular case that you are talking about, it's not going to happen. The reason why it's not getting investigated is because clearly the leader is looking the other way. I am not saying leadership is the look.
But
what are you saying then? What are you saying?
I'm not using your example, Sarian. You said choosing a 68-year-old commander. In this, I think you were referring to Mama Cham.
Yes, I am.
Again, someone who has the powers, the constitution giving the power is to handpick that Mama Cham. All I'm saying is, if you have a leader that is committed, forget about, I am not downplaying that individuals within the army, they have to know their role, whether you are a sergeant, whether you are an army commander. Of course, that is important. For them to have consent, of course, it is important. But I also do believe all that works if you have a leader that is committed to the constitution and to the rules of the game. If you don't have that, I don't care what conscience you have. they will pull you out and replace you with someone else without consent. That's
And
what
Musa,
Jammeh
Musa,
So what
Musa,
is your point? We came back to the same conclusion.
We are all in agreement. But here, though, it goes, Musa, it goes one step further.
No, Memory. My point is leadership matters. I'm telling you, it really does. It's
everything. It's everything.
Exactly.
No, it matters. But here is the thing, though, Musa. Because the way that government works, you know this more than I do, is that you have people who surround you and advise you. These are supposed to be advisors. And if they're guided by conscience, they would have told you, Mr. President, we cannot appoint this guy because of A, B, C, and D. We are
why would them all talk? You living in La La Land. That's not how it works. First of all, look at the advisors that this person is choosing. The advisors.
And this is where I'm coming again. If you have Musa, I know that if you are knowing you, and I in fact hate to say this, if you were appointed today to be an advisor of President Barrow on a certain issue, I can see you telling the president, Mr. President, this may sound good, but we should not go that route because it is A, B, C, and C wrong. Because you would have been because then you would have been guided by conscience to say that, you know what, I'm not just going to follow my paycheck and not do the right thing. What is happening, like Mustafa is saying, if there is one thing that is lacking in that country, is people with conscience and people who are guided by patriotism. So build an army of that. You will be selecting from a pool of Gambians that the country can rely on.
I think you guys are. I hate to use this word, naive.
No.
There's a reason.
We are not.
No, Mustafa, let him back up his point. Why do you think we are naive? Go ahead, Musa.
No, using his example, if I were the one chosen to advise the president, all right, I would say, no, Mr. President. That is why the president is not going to get advices with conscience, if I could use your word. He's going to get advices that will reinforce the misdirection or the lack of leadership. That's exactly what he's going to do. There is a reason why the president went ahead and bring in Henry Gomez. There is a reason why the president bring in somebody like Dusano. These are reasons. And then even Sabali. Don't tell me, because he knows exactly the kind of advisors that he needs. All I'm saying is bring in a leader who's going to respect the Constitution and someone who's going to bring the revolution, the change that the country needs. If you do that, that person will find the people of conscience that you are talking about.
I think it's all encompassing, Musa. It's a whole package. It's a whole package, not just the Constitution. There's someone who has the good character, the integrity. What he says, he does it. And I listened to one excerpt on MSNBC discussion. He says, we talk about this inflation. We talk about Ukraine war, Russia, all that stuff. But he says one dimension that we fail to to mention in this whole equation is the human dimension, the characteristics of human beings who fits into that equation, right? So people who drive, say our economic engine, who are in charge of our financial market, what policies that they do? Do they really stand up to fight corruption? I mean, that is something that is lacking. So we can blame, if I see this thing one day, oh, Ukraine war, blah, blah, blah. But what are you doing in your capacity, in your position? Even though we have this global phenomena, but what are you doing? You're not doing squat. We've seen an increase in a budget about freaking 10 billion more than last year. And you're telling me it's a Ukraine war and all that crap? I mean, give me a break. You got to put your head into the game. So we can talk about these global formula. We can talk, but what are your human instinct? What are you doing in your capacity to offset these things?
Really bad. Marinyang is coming in and out, and that is why Pasamba, I don't know whether we reschedule him or we just at least allow him to get into the conversation.
As soon as he comes in, just allow us, and he can just go on.
Allow him to come in if he connects, no problem.
The budget.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. I'm sure you are hearing one of these naivetes on this platform today, living in La La Land. So,
I heard part of it, and I was telling myself, Mustafa, that's not a good way to welcome me back to Gambia with all those negative news and historic corruption that happens in our public sector.
so how long have you been gone?
Just a couple of days.
Okay, Pasamba, take over. Let me answer this.
Yeah, well, Mar, thank you very much for joining us. Mar, the budget is here once again. We've seen a tremendous increase. I think the last budget was about 35 billion. This time we're talking about 52 billion. From your general assessments, I know you're still going through this. Have they written, to borrow from the government's Minister of Information, I think they added too many things. He said this is the closest to a balanced budget that the country has ever had. Is that your assessment of the budget, and do you think it represents one that would help the Gambian people come out of the wretchedness that we've been in since independence?
Not definitely, Coach. This budget, if you go down to the details, you will realize that what is in fact going to the public is not close to reducing 5% of poverty in this country, not even 2%. And I will give you the reason why. What people are talking about, this 52.9 billion that they are proposing in the executive budget proposal, we have to know that only 37.8 billion of that money is what the government has, which they call the GLF.
Yes.
Right? And so which means 15.1 billion of the budget is dependent on donor funds. Now, if I'm going to break this down, that 37.8 billion that the government has, you have to know that 11 billion of that money is going to go to the financing.
Yes.
So what are you left with? Technically, you're only left with $26.8 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And to go deeper down, out of that 26.8 billion, only $4 billion goes into developmental projects, which is capital expenditure.
Mm-hmm.
So the public is going to be receiving $4.5 billion in capital expenditure. So it cannot be a balance.
Hello, Mar, are you there? It looks like Mar is breaking. Thank you. And Mose, there is something that he said about the debt servicing, 11 billion. And that is 175% more than what we've been allocating over the past 3 years in debt servicing. And I think we are a country that I think has a serious problem because, yes, every country has its debt. And sometimes I hear people talk about, oh, the United States, their debt, they're $1 trillion. The United States borrows against the dollar. Oh, go ahead, Mar.
Yeah, I was saying, and still, looking at the expenditure, you have 1.26 billion that is going into vehicles. 800 million of that, the highest that the Gambia has ever recorded since it known itself, going into vehicle purchase. And good amount of that money, 436 million, is going to pay back the OIC vehicles that they have had an arrangement with business establishment. Now the OIC event is done. 81 vehicles are still loitering around the country. And I was making this analysis on somewhere else on the media that we've seen our ministers walking from their hotels to the conference center, or they join shuttles with their colleague ministers, or in fact junior staff and civil society in foreign countries, shuttling from their hotel accommodation to the conference center. What makes them think that Gambia is too special that you have to spend $700 million on vehicles for an event of 2 days? And before all was said and done, after the event, less than a month, they all distributed the cars among themselves. And before then, they all have their good-looking, well-kept cars. So why do we have to flush that money back on the people? Because when we say OIC cars, many people are thinking that these cars are being financed by the OIC, so we don't have to care much because the money is not coming from us. But that's not the case. It's coming from taxpayers' money.
Yeah, Mar, my last question on this round. The borough government prouds itself in saying that we are trying to be fiscally disciplined and this is why we are cutting travels. We have seen in this budget, this current budget, that travel is increased by $170 million, bringing it to about 520 something million. Do you think that is the way to go? I know your organization sometimes works with the National Assembly members, but do you see this as wastage, where now you're spending $800 million on cars, 89 that was bought, and then an additional maybe 390 something million on new ones, and now you're talking about also adding 170 million to travels. Where does this take us as a country, especially when we continue to spend so much money, like 11 billion, to finance debt servicing?
So whether that amount that is proposed for the travel votes is something that I would agree. I will not say I disagree with it totally. It depends on what that travel vote will bring back to the country, because certain travels with our statutory they should engage in it, but not all travels are necessary, right? For example, if travel means going to UNGA with a 25-member delegation, that does not make sense a lot. That's a wastage. So, to answer your question, that part of the travel expenditure will be a wastage, right? So, and in fact, that is one of the things that, in fact, outside, that's what we talk about. But within, how about the travel expenditure within our country here? And I was also saying the same thing with the Meet the People store. Why do they have to propose $50 million for the Meet the People store, which I think should be scrapped off the budget entirely? I know it's a constitutional mandate, but there is a better way to do it by deploying our permanent secretaries, deploying our planning specialists in different ministries to meet the people ahead of the budget preparation, what we call participative budgeting, to understand the core issues that the people face to face, instead of going to a rally and people clapping, dancing, and wasting money in Chebuja and the likes. Why not you meet with the people, sit with them, and the people will tell you what they are faced with health-wise, access to water, electricity, agriculture, in terms of access to organic fertilizers, and then also power tillers, irrigation system, and you name it. Each ministry that will be engaged in this Meet the People store will jot down all of these core priorities that the communities, right, breaking down from a community level to a ward level to a constituency level to a regional level, what they are prioritizing. You use that and inform your budget for the subsequent year. In that, you are going to be targeting directly the issues that the people face. But this Meet the People talk, like you barely hear what people are saying, because all that you hear is shouting, clapping, and attacking one politician, making political remarks. That's in fact a violation of the Constitution, because the Constitution
Mar, are you there?
familiarize themselves with people. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You kind of just went out for a second, but you're back.
All right. I don't know which part you last heard.
No. I think we've heard. Let me just ask you a question, man. When Pasamba told me that Gambia Participates, Marinyang is going to join us to talk about the budget, I'm like, oh my Lord, not again. Because it looks like every year we go through the same old. They should have allocated this, they should have allocated that. My question to you, based on, since you started kind of critiquing this budget, Have you seen anything that is different this time around? And is it just the whole system that needs to be overhauled? What is there that you can at least look at in the 2025 budget and say, you know what? Maybe this is an improvement. Maybe we're heading in the right direction. Or have you seen something that will say, like 2025 budget, actually, we're going to be worse off? What say you, man?
Well, if it comes to the transparency part, they have done pretty well in allowing us, the budget analysts, to understand the budget not only by this fiscal year, but then by the budget year 2, which is 2026, 2027. You see those projections in the budget. And at the same time, they come up with a program-based budgeting statement, PBB statement, which it's not bad for a start, but there's so much improvement that should be done. Now, in terms of the budget addressing the poverty of this country, the budget addressing the poor public service delivery in this country, poor road infrastructure, health service, river transportation, the ferry, and then you name it. I don't think so. Like I said, only 4 billion is going into the developmental aspect, right? That is grossly insufficient to in fact impact 10% of the population, even if it is put in the right way. So I think the whole problem, the root cause of this whole issue, is the way we prepare our budget, how we sit down in our office and then put a huge amount of allocations on travel votes, putting money to allowances and basically recurrent expenditures going all the way to seminars, workshops, surveys, and then you name it, repeating the same cycle over and over again. So I normally describe it as a budget that keeps a house going. But it's not a budget that develops the house to accommodate the ones who cannot fit in the house. So the ones that are outside the house cannot find themselves in the house because there is no space for them. So how do you broaden, how do you develop or expand the house to accommodate those people? You have to get down to them, understand not just the rhetoric way of going to those people and talk to them. No, we try to pilot that. You go to the people, ask them what their core priorities are, even though there's going to be gazillion, but let them prioritize among themselves the top 5. Now, out of those top 5, at least there is one that you could address. And these are like problems that the country have known ever since. Now, if they are able to prioritize one issue, you allocate that in the budget and address that. That is out of the way. The next year, you do the same thing. By the next 5 years, you will have already addressed everything. And I was also saying, this 11 billion that is going into debt financing, they have to pay their debts. But what I'm saying is, how about Banjul and Bara Bridge? The government says they need $500 million to bridge Banjul Bara. Now, this 11 billion, you multiply it by 3, in 3 years, it will get you a bridge. But ever since we've known ourselves, we cannot get a bridge. We're struggling with one ferry that has that 2.4 million people have to depend on.
So Mar, you coming back to this 11 billion servicing of loans that, without a doubt, we're talking about that we've accumulated up to this point, going all the way back to Jammeh. Now, if you look at servicing these loans, if you look at in the 2025 budget, it looks like that loan portfolio has gone down immensely. And that's one thing that they are pointing that, look, we're bringing down loans. Most of these expenses are basically, from taxes, JFL funding. The other thing that they are kind of talking about is like, look, we are also increasing salaries. That's another thing that they're saying, another takeaway. The other thing that they're bragging rights, if you want to call it that, is the deficit spending. That look at now. It means like we're heading towards, a balanced budget. Are you seeing that? Are these bragging rights that are for real? Meaning the loan portfolio, if you look at 2025 budget, it's like what? 7.1 billion. And they're saying, for instance, Here we are increasing salaries for people from grade 12 to grade 1. They're also talking about heading towards a balanced budget. Is this a legitimate bragging rights? Or are they just blowing smoke?
I can only answer that question if I see the actual expenditure of 2025 budget. What we are seeing is a proposed budget, and be mindful that what they normally
can you
propose.
help us, because some of us are not budget experts.
Okay.
When you say that, you can only comment if you see
actual expenditure.
What do you mean actual expenditures?
So there is what we call estimate. What they are proposing now is an estimate. What they are anticipating.
But hold on. But you will never be able to see, because right now we cannot even see actual 2024 expenses, because I look at the budget and what I see is what was approved. So the actual expenses for 2024, we haven't even seen that, let alone talking about 2025.
That's why I'm saying that I can only give you that answer when I see the actual expenditure, because I do analysis and on budget credibility of different ministries. You will see one particular ministry that is, for example, given $2 billion. At the end of the fiscal year, they end up spending 2.5 billion, 100% more than their expenditure sometimes. You understand? So what we are seeing are just figures that they are proposing, but going down to the implementation, they move money around.
It's a totally different story. Yeah, but what I'm saying is coming back, because we are only dealing with the estimates, because these are the same estimate. For instance, you talk about increasing $50 million for what they call it again, the people's store. These are estimates. It could be more, it could be less, but we are commenting on them. So what I'm asking is, based on the estimates that you're seeing, meaning the reduction of the loan portfolio, also looking at the deficit spending, and also the increase in salaries, again, estimates. Do you think these are legitimate bragging rights?
Well, that's a very difficult question, and it put me in a funny position to give that answer without the facts. But one thing I can tell you is, even the loan portfolio today, if the dollar goes up, right? And remember that the loans that we were paying, these are sometimes in foreign currency. If the dollar goes up against the dollar, it increases, right? So, whether it's a balanced budget, no, it's not a balanced budget. A balanced budget for me will be a budget whereas you have good chunk of that amount of money going into capital development. And when I say capital development that will be addressing the issues that the people face. And you have to know one thing, right?
Help us, Mark.
Yeah.
Some of us are not budget experts. No. I just want to understand. Sorry.
Let me give you this.
When you say a balanced budget going into, okay, just help me out. I thought a balanced budget is if you raise revenues to cover all your expenses. That's what it's called, a balanced budget, right? Or am I wrong?
I'm not actually addressing that part.
Okay.
Of the balanced budget on a global analytical aspect, right? What I'm saying is, even if you have a balanced budget where you have 52.9 billion going into expenditure, 52.9 billion estimated as revenue, that is in itself just figures that are proposed out there. You understand? They can play with
numbers.
Macroeconomy, they can do their analysis and then put the amount. Okay, this is a balanced budget, but in reality, the economic reality aspect of it, is it in fact feasible that the government will get that? Because from my analysis on the revenue projection that they have been given over this couple of years, that is what I have got, 52.9 billion, same as that of the expenditure, right? But whether that will come into reality is not going to be the case. And we've done this analysis looking all the way back to 2021 to 2023. What they propose or what they are estimating in terms of revenue is not what they actually realized. So this is the executive budget proposal. That's what they are putting out. But I want to give you one analysis as to how this budget cannot address the people And then the one thing that we keep calling our backbone, the backbone of the economy, it cannot address it. Coach and Musa and Mr. Tarian, right? Our GLF, which is the government local fund in terms of agriculture, they are proposing $945 million for agriculture. Right now, when you go to the amount of money that they are expecting from other donors, it goes all the way up to 6.1 billion. So what does that mean? We are depending on $5.1 billion from donors to impact our agricultural sector. How about if that money does not come? If we do not get that money, how do we expect that the agricultural sector is going to be improved? How do we expect that the food self-sufficiency that we have been dreaming of is going to be realized? How do we expect that we're going to also realize the circular economy that we are saying we help farmers, they produce products, they harvest it, process within, sold within, consume within, and the money stay within. When you are depending on when you're depending 5.1 billion on donor funds, and we have to look at the history of donor funding in this country and around the world. When crises emerge, they reprioritize.
Right.
They are financing to other areas. So, and this is the reason why I was saying I don't think the budget is prepared in a way that is going to address the core issues of the people. The only way it could achieve that is a system whereby the budget planners, right? I'm not saying this normal way of participatory budget where you go to the communities, where you have an open budget dialogue. And this is not only for the central government, it goes down to the local government as well. You go to the people, understand the core issues, prioritize that, and put it in your budget.
I agree. I seriously agree. Sarian.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Faramuz. Mr. Nyang, thank you very much for coming up. Just for the layman, man, can we break it down? What does balanced budget means? I mean, just for the layman. I mean, you don't have to be an economist or anything. Just in simple terms, what does balanced budget means?
For the fanas, you just batting you all.
No. When the man might like some question, they just give me time to ask my question. Don't interject, please. I'm just trying to educate for the greater good of our viewers. So we got the guy here, the mayor guy, who's gonna drive this. So mayor, please, by all means, break it down for us, please.
Good, man.
So in a layman, if I can put it in a way for a layman to understand it, is when your proposed revenue estimate that you are expecting within a period of time, in our case, it will be January 1st to December 31st, is either the same or equal to the amount or proposed expenditure that you want to spend for the same period of time. In our case, January 1st to December 31st.
Correct.
Thank you very much. So
that's what a balanced budget will mean.
Thank you, Mark. So what you're saying is, what you're bringing in, your revenue should be equal or greater than your expenses, right? Halis bungajo and all that. It needs to balance out, right? That's just the concept, right?
Yes.
Okay, and I heard these bragging rights and all that stuff, but let's get into the nitty-gritty of things here, right? So where it says personal emolument, it says 7.9 billion. Right? This is in 2024 to 8.93 billion, right? So obviously there's an increase 1.5 billion. And that is from proposed increases in salaries, transportation, and residential allowances, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Mr. Young, I think what I want you to educate us and the viewers, what does personal emolument means, and what kind of power, or some of things that the government can do to kind of offset that, or don't let your expenses spike. But if you could take us through and enlighten us a little bit about that.
All right. So under that category, personal emolument, that is where you're going to get the salary expenditures, the allowances, and then you name it. So all the charges that goes into remunerating or paying public officials their services. So that is what they will call the personal emolument, right? So the reason why you're also seeing the increment from 7.3 billion in 2024 to 8.9 billion in 2025 is because of this increment that they have made. And look, this is not the first time that they've been making these increments, right? They've done it previously, and then we have been telling the government that this is not sustainable. What you need is a revised pay scale, right? Where there is a minimum wage for every single Gambian. Right now, you don't have that. This 30% increment, 50% increment, there are those that are receiving $2,500. This increment doesn't mean that they're going to have the minimum wage that a Gambian should have, right? They've done it in 2021 in June, where there was a 30% increment across the board. And it was not telling well because the ministers at the time were part of it. Now they're saying this time around the ministers we are not part of it. But that's not an equal pay increment when you compare those at the bottom level of the pay scale to those that are beyond it. So to answer your question, that's what personal emoluments means: the salaries, the allowances, and you name it, everything that goes into remunerating or paying the services of government staff.
Okay, so I think my question to you is, how is that justifiable, considering you're saying only 4 billion goes to development, but you seeing the personal emolument spike to 8.93 based on estimates for 2025? How could you justify that based on all the challenges that we face in that country?
So I don't think I should be the one justifying this. They should justify that. What I think is, yes, people deserve to be paid well. Public servants should be well remunerated. So it depends on how you prioritize your allocations of the budget. 8.9 billion out of 52.9 billion might not be much when you are paying and when you're paying staff what they deserve, right? But what is concerning is from your own money, which we know that you have, which is the 37.8 billion, only 4.5 billion is going into developmental projects of the country, right? Now you have about 22 billion dollars that goes into operational cost of the government. That is the government's money, right? That's 37.8 which they have. I'm not in fact referring to the donor funds in a situation where that money does not come in. Dafa mel ni rek nga am sa néeg am sa ay njaboot ngay génne dépense ñu ndekki di añ di reer waaye seen yére bu gaa di sol di seen yére la gaa di sol même bu dee sax yére boobu noonu dafa dem ba màgget yére boobu la gaa di continuer di sol waaye te foog ma ne néeg na noonu la ko gaa di yore dépense waru ne ko kon dépense yi néeg bi nga xamante ne dafay doxal néeg dépense yi réew fa utee dépense yi néeg because suddenly they am for no small pharmacy in your house ku am flu wala dara nga joko mu like why ku am cancer dang ko yobu ci hôpital te man suma demé ci l'hôpital ma gis cancer patients and this is not hearsay. I witnessed this but them at the time them man this was just last year ma fekkale ñu ngi tok ci suuf ñu leen dala ci suuf ñu ngi tok lal bu gaay wara tëddee fu gaay wara tëdd lal boobu noonu ñu mun ñu ko am pour suñu cancer pe bari lu gën a concern mooy yow soo fa demee sax xet bu la di njëkkaa dóor soo feebarutee di nga feebar bu dee da nga feebar dina yokk sa feebar bu dee sax yaa ngi si diggante dund ak dee nga gis sa morom yi patient ku tëdd sa boor mu dee te amul no privacy loolu rek mën naa yóbbu sa fit nga dee ñëw naa seen dëkka Moussa coach ak Sariang you get into a hospital hardly nga jël medical smell of a medicine
yeah definitely
la moo tax ñun mënuñoo jox boobu dignity te we have I cannot remember the amount I should check that again we have an amount that is already proposed for medical tourism for our public officials whereas
20 million
whereas they cannot.
That's overseas treatment for people who to understand what we're talking about.
They go out of the country and get that medical treatment. Why fini every now and then I gis kenn mu jël mu ne kii dafa need overseas treatment. The citizens that pay that tax are paying that money for our ministers to go overseas to be treated. But the ones that pay the tax, their fate is in the hands of the generous people to fund their medical treatment outside the jurisdiction of this country.
So dig it. No, how ma conclude li mar dig it. Suma my late brother say pandere mba mu ne dig it. Lolu moy dega bu wer. Jerejef. Ma ngi la send that dig.
I wanted Pasamba before nga ñew key tamit because he's now beginning to fall asleep. Our good man Mustafa, so that he can also get involved. Why Mar, just for clarification, and again, I'm not holding grief to the government. The money that is allocated for tourism, it's not necessarily just for ministers or permanent secretaries. At least that's what the finance minister said the last time around.
But let me ask you a question. I know what you're saying, but do you think?
No, he did say that. He did
say that. That's what they say. Yes. But here is the issue, though. Is Mohamed Jang mi nga xamne mu nga deke Kawur Dandimayo. If he was sick and wanted to get overseas treatment, he would never get access to that money.
I don't know.
Coach. We have to be careful though, because CD, in fact, CD was pressing. He was pressing that because he Musa, I think you remember this. He said due to personal reasons or medical. He was pushing for them to publish the list for Gambians to see who benefited from these treatments. So I just want to put out there. So
yes. So I mean, I'm gonna fair and balanced.
There's a reason why we will never see that list.
Like Pandarin Bible said, fair and balanced.
No, I just got for my Chabaharek, at least I just gotta make sure that it's fair and balanced. He said that though, and I don't see why would he say he's on the record. He said he's pushing for them to
activists on steroids more Lulu. But anyway, brother Mustafa, you have a question or a comment as far as this 2025 budget? We're all now, finance, they're saying, look, this is the best budget that they've ever put out there. Critics are saying it's the same old. What say you to that?
No, I think, if you want to approach anything, the question is, at any point, is what do you want to address? So, for example, if you bring the finance minister in to your program, the simple question you should tell him, you should ask him is, what would this budget address? For example, by end of 2025, what kind of Gambia will we have that is different fundamentally from the current Gambia, and tell us tangibly, give us deliverables that we will have as a result of this budget. That's a simple thing. You see, I have a problem with educated people in this country because they make life seem like it's building a spaceship. It's not. For me, from where I sit, and this is how I do my job. You know, where I used to have problems with my colleagues because they like all these rules. Let's write pitches. We have to pitch. We have to. I said no. I'm a soldier. I go and do the damn thing. When I'm ready, I bring you the story. You edit. I don't like rules. You know.
I like this
So me,
guy.
I apply the same things to life. Right? Things are easy. They are not as complex. A country is simply an investment, right? Now, that is why
Computer borobi tanga good.
Good. But Mar, as Mustafa is dealing with this issue, I'm looking at this budget, Sibopam, and some of the increments. I know they're trying to get GRA to raise the tax revenue by 23% from where it was. So, mean a lot more taxes will be coming along people, except it is imported gasoline in our country. I've seen the Ministry of Information, which is very active now, has its budget increased by 57% from the last one. Do you have any inclination why that is the case? Because I'm thinking maybe education has not seen that much of an increase. Agriculture has not seen that much of an increase. But to see Ministry of Information, 57%. Petroleum has the highest increase among the ministries, 477%. Maybe they're buying new machines for GUC or whatever it is called. Central Service, 122%. The IEC, which is understandable because maybe they're assuming that we're going to have a referendum next year, 520% increment. You know, State House is asking for 24% increment of its budget, and all these things. From your conversation with these people, have you gleaned anything plausible to you that would warrant these increases, especially the Ministry of Information and centralized services? Centralized services to me is my biggest problem anyway. But the Ministry of Information and centralized services, why the need for this huge increases, 57%, 122%, and even State House 24%?
So I am going to need to do a broader research on that. But one thing I know is perhaps one thing that could influence the increment of the Ministry of Information's budget in the 2025 estimate could be the establishment of the Information Commission, right? They've recruited information commissioners, and the establishment of the commission will require them to have their own office, their salaries, any other activities that they will be doing under their mandate that will come under the Ministry of Information. So naturally that will increase the salaries of, or the budget for the Ministry of Information. But that is one thing that I know is a factor, but I need to do an extra dipping inside to still doing the analysis by ministries and be able to know what type of proposed new programs that they are trying to implement, or if not a new program, what existing program are they trying to expand on, and what are the expanse, what does this expansion mean? And this is why I was saying in the beginning that this PBB statement, I'm not sure if you have gotten the time to read the program-based budgeting statement that came with this proposed 2025 budget. This is where you need the PBB statement stating the programs that they are proposing, the justification of these programs, the inputs that they will be doing for these programs, the targeted population, the beneficiaries, and the impact it will have on them, right? And what indicators are they going to be using to measure the impact of these programs? That's what the PBP should actually include. This is the first time that they are publishing, which, like I said, is a very good idea. Going forward, this is how we could get more information on the transparency of government budget. The budget is such a document that is very complex to consume the information that you are looking for. There are certain information that they are not there. For example, you will see a budget line of 2.3 billion, for example, into land development.
Mm-hmm.
So you see land development 2.3 billion, but what does land development means?
Mm-hmm.
Right? They are based on my research and engagement with some of the colleagues in the government. The explanation that I was given is they have different components of land development. For example, gardening is considered as land development, right? If you're doing another agricultural activities that requires you developing the land, investing on that particular land, could be land development. But in the budget, I would not be able to see, for example, the parent body land development, the sub bodies. This is what the sub components are going to be, right? So that is the level of transparency that will be required in the budget document. But that is not to, without prejudice of the efforts that they have done in increasing, obviously, gradually the transparency of the document.
Now, you had said something earlier, and that was how you have checked the budgets of various entities, let's say ministries, where you see that they would spend a lot more than was allocated to them. Now, the budget that is now presented is a proposal. Until it is passed, it is nothing. It's just a document. Now, when it is passed, it becomes law. That is the legally you are allowed to spend up to this much money. Can one legally spend more than was allocated? Because I think there is also, my understanding, you are more into this than I am, a provision in the constitution that gives the government, the executive, the opportunity to come back and ask for a supplementary budget. That is in case they have budgeted less than they are spending. But will it be legal for an entity to ask for, let's say, 170 million and then spend 230 million without any appropriation? And to answer that, will you also maybe jog our minds again as to the whole essence of the centralized services, the miscellaneous? I think that's the miscellaneous aspect of the budget.
So if an entity is given, for example, 100 million, right? And at the end of the fiscal year, they spend 120% of that amount, which is still within the appropriated amount, then that becomes legal, right? But if government wants to spend more than what has been approved by Parliament, right? The constitutional regulation here is they have to bring what they call SAP, the Supplementary Appropriation Bill, to Parliament, to ask Parliament to give them extra, to approve extra money, right? Which normally happens around the mid-year of the fiscal year. So when Parliament approves, they still have to spend within the amount that have been appropriated. So that's why there was a particular fiscal year, you have a budget and then you have a revised budget because it went to Parliament and the Parliament gave them an appropriation. So it is legal for ministries to spend more than what it has been given to them, as far as the amount is within the global amount, which is the total, is amount what has been approved. Now, the way they've been doing that is because there is another subsidiary legislation, right, which allows them to move money around, which is the environment that they have been doing. So this is always the reason why you will see certain ministries will either overspend and then they will underspend. And for example, you will see that in 2018, the education sector alone, they overspent their budget by 15%. In 2019, they overspent their budget allocation by 6%. But 2020, because of the COVID-19, they underspent that budget by minus 7%. After the reallocation was done to prioritize, the COVID-19 intervention, and that's why you will see the Ministry of Health, whose budget has been underspending from 2018 to 2019. By 2020, they overspend their budget by 28%. So yes, they could do that as far as it's within the amount that has been the global amount that has been approved by Parliament.
Well, thank you very much. Musa, the Benadryl thing is for you because they believe that maybe you took some Tylenol PM and all that stuff. So you just gotta wake up, Thank you very much.
Oh, you mean Kini?
Yeah, I think you're doing a barrow,
Juka Sise. But Amar, yeah, I'm sure we almost like 2 hours into the program. But this is the question that I have. You talked about this so-called increase of salaries. And I went back and I look at the people that are grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. You mentioned like having at least minimum wage or whatever. And I kind of do agree with you. I think this whole increasing from grade 12 to grade 1, maybe what they could have done is look at the people at the bottom of the like grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, making $2,600 a month and said, look, we know that a bag of rice costs $2,000, oil this, oil that, and then at least pay those people their income for them to be able to at least afford a meal and maybe afford housing. And then do the increase from the bottom up. Okay, then in the at least you in the land make $5,000, $6,000. To me, that would have made much more sense and impactful to the average Joe. In as much as I like the idea of grade 12 to grade 1, but maybe do most of the increases from the people at the bottom, because $2,600, so could you have 30%, 40% increase? I mean, this person is still poor. This person cannot still afford, a bag of rice. And that is why we wanted to talk about the budget. We reached out to the Minister of Finance to send at least someone from that Director of Budget, someone from the Budget Office. Because again, we can sit here and talk about what on you allocate li, what on you allocate la. Again, numbers are just numbers. There is a thinking behind it. And unless and until we bring someone from the Budget Office to tell us what is the thinking. You're saying from 42 billion to 42.9 billion revenue. What is that based on? What is the thinking behind it? Like you said, you can say we're going to get grants. How much did they say? 15.6 billion. From 2024, it was 12.1 billion. Out of that 12.1 billion in 2024, how much grants did we actually receive? Normally, the document doesn't tell you that. And that is very, very unfortunate.
It only tells you by the previous budget year. Like, let's say, for example, in the 2025, you can only know the actual expenditure that the Office of the President spent, right? And the National Assembly and all the others, the revenue that has been collected is always late by 2 years.
Yeah, but that doesn't help anyone.
Yeah, it doesn't help. But now there's one thing that they have started doing, which I fancy. They have been providing mid-year expenditure report. For example, if you go to the Ministry of Finance website, you will see the actual amount of expenditure that they have expended for the fiscal year 2024, and then also the revenue that they have also received. So if you do follow their website, you will get to see those information, which started this year, because previously they were only reporting on the DLF expenditure, not all funds. Now that has changed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I'm thinking, like in our line of business, let's say in our line of business, when I'm looking at 2025 budget, you're always also looking at 2024 actuals from like January to September, and then there's a 3 months forecast. Because if you really look at, let's say for the government, I'm sure they know from January to what month are we in? November. From January to October, they know actually the amount of taxes received. I'm thinking revenue-wise. And then they can forecast the rest of the 2-3 months that is left. So again, if we were to have the someone from the budget office, maybe they could justify why they believe that this 52.9 billion makes sense. Because I remember when I asked you this question, you're saying you can't answer it because, I mean, you know, these are nothing but just estimates. But estimates based on what?
Yeah, I can only answer the actuals. I'm just looking at their July expenditure, July revenue forecast, report.
July.
You could see them giving you the proposed January to July target and the January outturn for the 2024 and then 2023. So they have been doing that reporting for revenue collection this year. Normally they have this information there at the ministry. It's just a matter of consolidating it, putting flesh on the bones, and then publishing it. That's what they have started doing this year. So personally, I've always been going to their websites, tracking information that they've been publishing to see how is the expenditure trend and revenue collection trend, right? Because I focus more on the actuals than the estimates are good to guide, but in the implementation of the budget, I'm focusing more on the actuals that will guide me and my organization to know whether the government is on track to achieve the revenue that they have forecasted for this year. Whether the government is on track or they have gone beyond the track in expending what they have estimated for the particular fiscal year. So that's why when you were asking me for a balanced budget, why I was hesitant to give you that answer was based on my analysis that I have done over the past years on budget credibility. Budget credibility measures a government's proposed budget as to their actual expenditure or revenue that they have collected for the particular fiscal year. And the trend has always been either they have been underspending, right? And what you're saying, personal emoluments, it doesn't mean that they will spend all sometimes. And I will give you the reason why, right? Just 2018, they overspent their personal emolument by 7%. But that went down to -6% in 2019 and further -9% in 2020. And these are the actuals. So that's why I like talking about the actuals while using the estimates as a guide.
So okay. So you're thinking it would have been much more helpful if you're looking at actual expenses. Because I even looked at the 2023, and sometimes I don't understand. It's at like a negative amount. So I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm not sure because I like to look at least the actuals in 2023 and see what was budgeted in 2024 because it tells a story. Then you see what is estimated what is budgeted in 2025.
Yeah, you will have a negative figure because one thing that you need to know, and ministries also do complain this. What is approved for a particular ministry doesn't mean that is the actual amount that they will receive. So you will always hear ministries when we have this conversation, and them because Minister of Finance used to organize this citizens budget dissemination, and they bring ministries and they will complain. Look, this is what we have proposed, and you've approved this particular amount, but going down to the implementation, we receive only 50% of that amount.
Right.
And the ministry will tell them, well, we distribute based on the revenue that we receive.
Collected. And the timing, yeah.
So that's why I was, that's why I like to focus on those actuals at the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah, because 52.9 billion, that doesn't mean for you guys, that doesn't mean we have that money in the bank account.
No,
ready to be spent.
It's not there. What could be guaranteed is the 37.8 billion that the government have.
So
that can be 26 point because 11 billion of that will be going to pay the debt that we owe. Yeah. So if you have anything to spend for the people, it's about 26.
So
I'm going to more boring and left.
Barrow has left more than Jammeh has left.
Here goes the second angle of the question. Since Musa is trying to educate us that is not in a bank account and ready to be spent. Now, Mr. Nyang, what does the national debt stand from last year? I mean, what is the both domestic and international? What is the percentage breakdown?
I cannot give you the figure of head. We're dealing with trillions of digits right now, and I don't want to give you a wrong figure. I need to check, but I know the last time that they reported, was it last year or at Parliament, they did mention that 110 billion was the debt portfolio, and they disaggregated it by external debt and then also internal debt. And the increment of those debt was also because the dollar was appreciating, the dollar was depreciating, and the debt was actually increasing, right, in size. So, and I actually, in fact, said it earlier, right? Even the amount that they are proposing right now, as far as the dollar and the other foreign currencies are appreciating, and the dollar is not doing well, it will continue to be a pressure on us. Yeah.
All right, that is clear as. But Musa, let me get. No. Okay, go ahead. Oh, okay. I thought you about to ask a question. So, but it's okay.
No. Because my second question before you.
Okay. Sorry. So why?
Because Pasama kept going back to central services, and I remember Matt and Mar, when the minister was here last year, we talked about that, and his response was central services are basically expenses that government is going to incur that doesn't fit into any of these ministries. So it's not just like a miscellaneous or this tilt that they just want to take and just spend willy-nilly. I mean, what's your understanding of these central services? Again, based on the response that the minister gave last year. Mar.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
No, we can hear you now. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So for the centralized service, I think the minister is right on the answer they gave you, because if you go down to the budget where you have the centralized services, it will list all the expenditure that they are expecting for that fiscal year. But also, it is the pot where the government also do move money around when they're doing their times. Right? They have a little bit flexibility using that centralized services to move money around to different ministries. I know certain parliamentarians, and I get their point. They have been they've not been a big fan of decentralized service. They see it, just like you said, as a miscellaneous, and it should not. Right, every single ministry should be able to anticipate and project their expenditure for the fiscal year. Right, there was no need to have centralized services if they're able to do those forecasts.
Yeah.
So meaning Musa, what my thought was, yes, it is meant for this, but it also gives them a lot more latitude to be able to use it as miscellaneous too. So Arian, I think, has a second question.
Also, you go down to centralized service. In fact, there is a line on miscellaneous office expenses, so you still have those miscellaneous in it. For example, in the 2025, you have 550,000 that they have put aside as miscellaneous office expenses. So, and some of those lines, they keep reoccurring. In fact, within centralized service, because official entertainment and hotel accommodation, you will find it on the office of the president. You will find it under the vice president office as well. But you also find it on the centralized service. You will see that in 2020, they in fact approved up to 4 million, but 2025 they scrap it off totally. So they do reoccur in here. And for me, I think what should be done is to remove centralized services, and every ministry give a transparent forecast of their amount that they are planning to spend for the upcoming fiscal year.
Can there be any expenses that doesn't fall under a ministry? Forget about miscellaneous. That there are certain government expenses that one cannot, neatly put it under a ministry, or that's impossible.
I know there's what we call off-budget activities. They do happen, but for a particular ministry where they have an unforeseen expenditure, which they have not, they can apply for that allocation, tying it to a budget activity that is more akin to what they are asking to the Ministry of Finance. And this is where they do environment. And I know Sidi Jada has been a big critic of environment. In fact, he described it as a criminal activity couple of years ago, because these ministries, right? And I think Ministry of Finance will struggle with this. What some of these ministries will do, they can put a travel budget vote of $5 million, right? The law gives the power to move money around within their ministries without the approval of the minister, if it is about 50%, something like that. Also, right? I think, sorry, they have to still stick the consent of the minister, and then also up to 75%, right? In another aspect. So what you will see as an estimate will not necessarily mean that they will spend that $5 million. They could go all the way to spend $10 million on travel expenditure. So this is where parliamentarians are also kind of played with, because you will see this budget allocation for travel, or proposed allocation for travel, or 2 million, oh, that's fine, let's just let it go. But you come to the reporting, you will see $10 million.
Yeah. Sorry, I think you have the last word, or Pasamba. We need to get out of here.
Mr. Nyang, I have a commentary and a loaded question. So looking at looking at the allocation for the office of the president. So 2020. Office of the president. So last year, 2024, it was 872 million. That has increased based on their new forecast, $1,085,644. Considering, and I know you talk about this, the Meet the Farmer store and all that, what can be done differently. But it does the means justify the ends? I mean, considering everything, and you got about what, 7 or how many presidential advisors? And my question to you is, does the president's salary comes from this, or it comes from the consolidated funds?
It comes from this.
The president's salary will come from the allocation of the office of the president.
Okay.
And all the other operational costs, the advisors, the state guards, in the upkeep of the state house, you name it, the vehicle expenses, their entertainment and accommodation, everything, all the way including the furniture that they will be purchasing.
Thank you.
But there is a lot more to it, though, if I may add.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
No, seriously, because CD did say that, because sometimes when people hear Office of the President, they're just looking at Office of the President. But under that Office of the President, you have strategic policies, you have management of household, you have cabinet office.
It seems like you are reading from a text, man.
No. Seriously,
it looks like someone sent you a text, Faramon.
No. I wrote this thing down because I have the same question. And
Busa,
there are a lot of
people are fully aware of that, though.
No, I'm just saying
people who are critical of it are fully aware that.
No, you are aware of it, but I think there is a need for clarification. This is a platform for fair and balance.
No, but here is the thing. No. Listen, Musa. Musa, if they want clarification, you invited them. Let them come and clarify that. Don't be there. They clarify.
I am not. Look, like I said, all I'm saying is there are a lot of people that are watching. Office of the President includes all these other agencies within the office. I'm not justifying the amount. No, I'm not at all.
All I'm saying here, Musa, is this is supposed to be a people's budget. The fact that we've been having these budgets year in, year out, and still Gambians pay for the budget, do not even understand how the budget works. That's the problem of the government, people that are paid to do those communications. Maybe that meet the people's store that they are doing now. If it was geared towards talking to the Gambian people, explaining to the Gambian people why they are budgeting the way that they are budgeting, because that's all part of the process. Maybe we will not have having this.
Let me answer it in a very. At the end of the day, it comes down to us as citizens. We hire these people, we give them mandate, and said, this is what we expect to do. They misuse our funds year in, year out. Even though that they do, when we are given the opportunity to change and bring in some other people to oversee our lives, we don't do that. So maybe each and every one of us should look ourselves in the mirror and say, how the hell do we want our resources to be managed? Because basically that's what it really comes down to. I agree with you totally. I am not trying to justify increases or lack thereof. I don't want to hold breath for them. That is why, if you remember, I said, I sent a text to the Minister of Finance, give us someone. People have questions, and we don't just want to come here and just say, oh, these things have not been allocated here and there. Now, at the end of the day, if they don't give us answers, it is us, Pasamba Jau, Sariang Maron, somebody who lives in Kayaf, to say, you know what? When everything is said and done, these people are not managing our resources that we wanted to. And then come 2026, we change them and bring some other people, period. So the problem is us.
Yeah, Sarian, you asked something that is about the salaries. And this is where we have to zero in. The Office of the President last year, what was allocated for salary was 90 million. Allowances was 65 million. This year, and this is I want you to pay particular attention to this.
All right.
Okay. Travel, Office of the President was 66 million. Meet the People's Store was 30 million. That is this current budget. This is what they're asking for in the
2025
proposed budget. Salaries, it went down from 90 million to 85 million and 94,000. All right. Now, if you're looking at one year salary, no. The salary is taxed, and Mary is here, can confirm this. The salary is taxable. The allowances for those officials are not taxed. Yeah. So now the allowances rose from 65 million to 94,250,000.
For who?
All right.
For who?
For the president's office. Office of the
president's salary or the total office of the president?
No, the total office, the president's salary.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
The president's salary.
No,
you are a bit distracting. He got the flow.
The president's salary, if you read the budget, is there. It's about 3 million plus. But what I'm talking about here is what they are doing, what this government has been doing, and this is the issue that I had with the National Assembly the last time around, is that they may pay their salaries less and have a bloated allowance budget, which is not taxed. And then you look at travels. It was 66 million this year. Now they're asking for 2025, 100 million for travels. Well, maybe because he's the OIC chairman, now he has to travel some more. But these are some of the numbers that you also have to look at very carefully, because that's why I always say you have to look at the manpower budget to be able to separate the wind. What do they call the chaff from the whatever they call they say, because there is always a lot in there. It's a bulky document, 520 pages. I wanted to print it out the other day. I asked the maybe it will cost you about 200. I said no.
So what's the president's annual salary, Pap Summer?
The president's annual salary, you can go ahead and I'll be able to bring it up.
No,
I'm going through the budget.
3 million, you said, right?
It's about 3 point something million.
3 point something million.
And
that's his salary. That doesn't include allowances.
So 3 point something million, you said.
And,
right?
and then here that's
sounds
where
like a rip-off to me.
This nonsense of that's just like
it sounds like a rip-off to me.
per hour. You're talking about people who
sounds
Musa,
like a rip-off.
you do something that is so dangerous. And this is why when you went to the Gambia and talk about $100,
Sariang Marong is making more. The president's salary is $50,000.
Okay, all right. You know what? 50,000.
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. My assistant makes more money than the president. And you know what your assistant doesn't have? Hold on. Let me finish. I'm not justifying anything.
You are justifying, and you need to
listen, my friend. Listen. And you know what is funny? Both the president and my assistant go to the same global supermarket. Prices are pretty much the same. When you walk into a supermarket in Gambia, it's no different from walking into a supermarket in the US.
You know where you're wrong. No, you know where you're wrong, and what you're doing is dangerous. You know why what you're doing is dangerous.
It is not
the president. No, Defaldanka.
Okay.
The president does not spend a penny of his money for food that he eats. The president does not spend a penny of his salary for clothes that he wears. The president does not spend a penny of his salary for cars that he drives. The president does not spend a penny of his money for rent or housing. The president does not spend. You say this thing, and I've been telling you it's so dangerous. And all it does, all it does is give these people that are continuing to abuse our people to say, "Hi, President, be 50,000 lime. You make more than that." No, our economists are not the same. No, but the president makes much more than that. The president has allowances that are not taxed. The president does not pay for anything. Musa,
go look at the.
The president does not pay for anything.
Friend, relax.
I'm not going to relax.
We go through this every year.
No, the president does not pay for anything.
But Masama, we need to get out of here.
You know what? Then don't end the program this way. Talking about $50,000. I
am just trying to put
Musa, Musa, if you were earning leggy, right? Let me tell you that. I know you earn much more. If you were earning now $30,000 a year, you don't have to pay for housing. You don't have to pay for transportation. You don't have to pay for your food. You don't have to pay for your clothes. You'll be a rich man.
No, I am just putting things in perspective. Even when they question, forget about the president. Let's go and look at the salary of a permanent secretary at the office of the president.
I'm talking about the president.
You put that in perspective. Same thing with we talked about last year, we had this back and forth with the Speaker of the House, who's making 1.8 million. I mean, and I kind of bringing it down to this guy is making $16 an hour, and you get all agitated. But that is the reality, though.
Does he pay taxes?
That is the reality.
Who provides his car?
But at the end of the day,
even his telephone is paid by the taxpayers. Telephone bill.
Anyway, so Mark, any last takeaway?
Sorry, Mark. This devil's advocate.
Musa, why are you trying to justify such a thing, man? I'm telling you.
I'm not justifying. I'm just putting it in
and you know what? Your assistant, Musa, if your assistant got sick, he would have to get some out-of-pocket this thing. When Barrow gets sick, the state pays for his medical expense, including all his family.
Bro,
but anyway,
the president should be compensated. But this is what I believe, though. At the end of the day, the people at the bottom of the ladder, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, I think salary increases, that's where the focus should be.
Grade 1 to grade 6.
These folks should be able to afford a bag of rice at the end of the month. These folks should be able to afford at least a decent 2 meals a day. These folks should be able to.
Here's mine. Thank you for your devil's advocate. But here is the $100 million question.
Yes, sir.
How do you do across the board increase 30%? and there is disparity between the people on the high end. Say for someone making 100,000 a month, someone making 3,000 a month, and you make a 30,000 increase across the board, someone on the high end, 100,000, got $30,000 more,
Correct.
and the other guy who is making only 3,000 is only making $300 on top of his salary. How do you justify that?
This is where I agree with you, man. I don't like this across the board 30% increase. If I were the director of budget, or if I were the minister of finance making decisions in terms of, because cost of living, seriously, the people at the bottom, man, I would not do it like that across the board 30%. Even though they said the ministers were excluded, is from grade 12 to grade 1. Man, I wouldn't say 30% from grade 12, because grade 12, afford. The guy, the cleaner or the driver will not be able to afford that. So to me, I would say 100% increase for somebody making from grade 6 to grade 1. Understand? To bring them up to be able to afford certain things. Then from grade 6 to grade 12, I would say something like 30% increment. Again, look, at the end of the day, income distribution, I think, is important. And these people, there's no way for $2,600, my friend.
Yeah.
Well, if you increase someone's salary, it's not, you don't have to be an economist, right? So if you increase someone's salary, you give him more buying power. That money goes back into the economy, right?
You know what, Sarian? You know what, Sarian? Sergeant, in your quest to play down the president's salary, what would be the salary of the person who earns? No, we're going 50,000. What would be the salary of the person who earns $1,200 in a month?
Pennies.
And that person also has to go to the same global.
Yes.
Thank you.
But
all right,
this is what I'm saying.
Especially if you can't balance your budget, why are you increasing across the board?
I am trying to put in perspective what the office of the president of the Gambia, is earning in real terms. That has nothing to do with me justifying. All I'm saying is this. Gambia is an extremely poor country. And the whole budgeting system has to be definitely revisited. There's something that Mar said, and I want him to comment on that. This whole talk about we spend so much on recurrent and not developmental budget. But my question is, do we even have the luxury? Do we have the luxury to spend make the kind of investment in the kind of development budget that Mar, you are talking about? Because at the end of the day, we all run households. If I am budgeting for my household, for instance, I'm looking at the 3 meals a day, I'm looking at the electric bill, I'm looking at the water bill, I'm looking at the gas bill. So those are the things I'm going to zero in before I start talking about, well, maybe one now remodel out the house, which is more capital intensive. So if you say that they are ignoring putting so much money in those kind of investment, my question is, do you think they have the luxury to do that? Just
they do.
The reality of the 2025.
They do, Musa. They do. They do have the luxury. They do have the luxury to put more money into capital development. They could still keep the house rolling, right? That amount of money, the 8.9 billion that they are giving to that they allocating to passengers, those are statutory. You have to pay your staff. That is out of the way. Now you minus that from what they have. I'm not even talking about the old fund, the GLF, the 37.8 billion. You minus once you minus that, right? You start working around the different ministries, and you look at their proposed recurrent expenditure. So on the recurrent expenditure, you have personnel. The other ones is rental. We have ministries that are paying $40,000 for rental. Right? What will have been the solution to it? You save that money. You already have the lands available. You develop that, and then you get you move into that property, and it becomes your asset. It accumulates on the government's assets database, and then you save yourself that expenditure. That is one way to save costs. Now the other thing as well, the other luxury that we are talking about is the OIC vehicles. Why do they have to spend almost $1 billion on the vehicles?
Definitely.
That's also the current expenditure. Why wouldn't they have used that money and start the Banjul Bara Bridge? For a start.
Marwa ñomi la moo tax mu ci Banjul Bara Bridge bi.
Maru, he kept going back to that.
Duma wa ñomi sax nga lu xewa gi nga féri bi daf ma de because nga lu xew lu ñu ñu xamul mooy 2012 dama jugoon Albreda di ñëw back to Greater Banjul. Ben immigration mu doon def injustice and I stood against it. Mu arrest ma handcuff ma guy dóor yu garaaw fekk maa ngi nekk teenager. So moo tax affaire féri bi nii it just pisses me off. The injustice and corruption bu fa nekk foog naa bridge bi is the solution. So moo tax all this while maa ngi naan before 2.4 million people or more depends on the ferry, right? There is another way that you could in fact boost the economy of this country by bridging this Banjul Bara. Like this business you struggle in Bara to cross, they are moving in already. You understand? So another luxury that they also have, Moy, send so whole CC budget be. They have this furniture and fittings. Every year you get the furniture and fittings. Why do you have to be allocating furniture and fittings? Most office. Buying a bagage since 2019 I don't have to buy any other furniture and fittings again.
Yes.
No, parece Marsa in addition to
computer. Parang gumasa, ngayon na computer tay.
Right.
Nakatuda do the negligence of one staff. Muya ha computer bi. Ngayon flush that on the government. Nga dugo ko si subsequent budget. So lot of soon recurrent budget we accumulate every now and then. So they have the luxury. It's just reprioritizing the allocations.
And that's the thing. Look at budget bini. Because next year is our 60th independence anniversary. We have very little to show for it. Guy decided to put over 200 million for entertainment purpose. That's what it is. So Mumbai and you have schools, because I'm watching right now, Baro is in Sandu. That's what I'm watching now too, as I'm listening to you on GRTS. You know what people are asking for? Oh, we need furniture for our school so that our kids will not be sitting on the floor. So this is so Musa is a matter of just prioritizing. You know this more than anybody else. But what we have is we have the money and we are so worried about Mumbai and it's just utter nonsense. Let them spend the money where it would benefit people. That's just what it is. Period. Why do we if I have to pay the telephone allowances, telephone this thing for members of parliament and all these people? Why do we have to pay for their telephones? Pay for your damn telephone. Why do we have to provide vehicle for every government official and GASCO? Find your way. We'll pay you a salary. Let's have a Nakaratura. And you know, that's where the savings will come. Musa, salaries. Let's say, okay, you know what? The minimum wage for salaries for government is $10,000. Okay? All right? You find your way. Musa, you are a senior official at your job. They do not care what you drive. All they care is you better be there when your job is, when you're supposed to start, leave when you're supposed to leave, do your job. That's it. The same with me. I take the bus to go to work. They don't care how I get there. I better get there.
But they pay you a lot of money, so they don't have to care about that. If you're a Gambian,
you know what? The allowances that they pay them, money. The allowances that they pay them that are not taxed is enough for them to be able to go to and come back from work. That's just what it is. And this is what Mustafa was talking. We have to have people with conscience. When they're making the budget, they'll be guided by what is in the general interest of the Gambian people and not what is in the interest of the few.
And not only that, so the amount of money that is going to our embassies, they're just too much that we cannot afford them.
We have too many embassies. For what?
Right?
What was the monthly thing again? 2 billion?
Yeah, 1.7 billion. More them into embassy expenditure for 2025.
And you know, some of those include hiring of accountants. So for example, if you move an accountant, for example, which you can get anywhere in the world, you will have to get an accountant with the accountant's wife and his family, and you have to pay international schools for them. Do you see the point? You can hire an accountant anywhere.
Definitely.
But that's besides the point. The point I was trying to make before I drop off. I think it's an internet issue before I drop off. But the point was, you see, the budget will have to be approached like a business. Like, so for example, I have a state, I have people, 2 million people, I have their welfare, and then I have a hierarchy of needs. So I have 35 billion. Now the point is, what is their problem right now?
Correct.
How much of that problem can I alleviate within this particular allocation? How can I make them more productive? How can I create a business that is self-sustaining, will be making profit? That is what a budget, anybody who has to sit down to think about creating a budget should think about. So for example, you say, okay, this current Gambia, what is our biggest problem? What's the biggest burden on our economy? First, simple thing, you don't need to be an economist. It's that we are spending too much money on buying food to feed the people. Food, too much money on import, right? And large amount of that is on buying food. So simple things. Sit people on their damn asses and ask them, how do I make sure enough rice is cultivated in the Gambia? How much do I need to do that? Okay, so you know how much rice you consume in the Gambia.
Correct.
Now your budget should simply say, okay, so for a period of 5 years, we need to have a target to make sure we neutralize rice importation in the Gambia. So sit people down with sense and say, how do I do that in 5 years? Now, this is how budget should be made. So budget should itemize the country's problems, list of problems, and then find, and that is why I said budget is simply an investment. That is why I started with educated people, because they make life seem like you need to be able to build a nuclear spaceship before you are able to do anything sensible. So that when they come, they bombard people with big grammar, with big things. Life is very simple. Yeah, I have a country of 2 million people. They have needs. Government exists to alleviate those problems. And those problems are what you create a budget for. So the simple thing is, we have problems, we have money, and we want that money to solve those problems. How much of those problems can we solve? How can we go about solving those problems? Now, for 52 years, so let me give you this simple example. And that's why I said this whole budgetary circle and the way they do it is nonsense. We are going to be talking, I'm telling you here, in the next 20 years, we are going to be talking about problems. No, I'm serious.
That is
because no, 20 years, it's not changing. If you have, let's say, for example, poverty. Let's limit ourselves to just one scope. Let's say you are trying to cut down poverty in the Gambia. Okay, when Barrow came, we know poverty has increased since Barrow came to power. Now, let's say you are trying to cut down poverty in the Gambia. You're looking at, how do I invest in making sure poverty is reduced in the country? You need to have plans for that. You need to know, what kind of sectors do I need to invest in to make sure I reduce food poverty? But how do I do this systematically? That's what it's called a plan. So for 50 years, all that we've been doing is this same kind of budget allocation. So Ministry of Health, you come, we give you this amount. This is what we need to do. This is the budgeting. I refuse to be dictated by this donor nonsense, because, and that is why I choose the way I do my journalism. So for example, even journalism, a simple journalism, so donors will require you, or we need to do, you will have to create workshops, you will have to create this, you will have to do this, validation, this, that, and that. Because our governments are created by people who are worried about maintenance of state and their own elitist status. They don't want the uncomfortable reality to hit first. And if you want to make a country develop, it has to be an uncomfortable process. You see, people have to cut unnecessary cost. And if you cut unnecessary cost, who does it hurt? The elites, the people who have to finance their lifestyles on the poor people. So they have to go into donors, create all these agricultural projects, and a large amount of which is going into administrative cost. right? And when they come, but all that is meant to maintain their lifestyle. Now, the people, they don't have a tangible, deliverable, concrete plan which says agriculture is this at this level. This is amount of rice we cultivate at this level. This is the number of money we need to invest in agricultural production to be able to. So we are going to do this in 5 years. But systematically, every year, this is what we will do. This is a plan. Or agricultural groundnut season is this. So farmers, for example, are cultivating this much. This is what we need in terms of value addition. What we are going to do. This sounds like a plan. So you have to sit down and systematically build a country. It's not
Correct.
like this budget process. Like, every year it's like a ritual even. You go bilateral, this lateral, that lateral, and you come together, you create this thing. We have to have people who sit down and make this thinking their business. I was talking to a colleague some time ago, and we were discussing about agricultural issues, agricultural production, and other things. And I saw the Minister of Agriculture talking about the poor yield this year that some farmers are going to realize because they were late at planting. And I said to myself, in a normal functioning country, farmers would have, it is government's business to give farmers adequate information. So, for example, this is the amount of rains we are going to have. The rain is going to start at this period. You need to start planting by this period. And then this is the number of support. This is government's business. That is why we used to have agriculture extension workers to go and advise farmers. So if you are now telling the yield is going to have a problem because farmers didn't plant early, whose fault was that? That is your fault. Do you see what I mean? And so that is why I said this whole thing, the government has handed to us by colonialists need to change. So we should sit down and say, okay, what problem do we currently solve? And that is what we are not approaching. We are not approaching this budget thing as an investment. So, for example, when the COVID hit, we had a bunch of civil servants who come together hurriedly. They do this stupid thing they call environment. They mobilize $800 million. And what did they do with it? They buy rice, oil, vegetable oil, and onion and give it to families. Now, how much is this going to help a particular family? This is going to take them perhaps a week, most. Now, think about if you take 800 million and divide it into 50, 50, 50, 50. I'm not saying give it as a loan. Select a group of young people in every region and give them 50 million and say, I want you to be horticultural farmers. Give them agricultural extension workers who are going to advise them. Give them a land that they're going to till, organize them into a business, make them register their business, make them register as taxpayers. Probably in 2 years, you would have them pay more tax than $1 billion because they're going to bring you what they're going to be real horticultural farmers. But that money, meanwhile, you just pick and give it to people to spend in 1 week. But that's the kind of thing. So if you don't have people who think of government like an investment, then it's going to have a problem. This is the kind of budget you're going to have every year. And the next 50 years, I'm telling you, unless this budget thing changes, we will still come back and talk about poverty.
That would definitely, we're going to hear from the last word. We're down to 2 minutes. We're getting out of here at 4 p.m. Mal, bottom line, what Mustafa is saying, get rid of this whole, and he's not the only one that has said that. I think Halifa Saleh said that on this platform, saying that whole thing needs to be overhauled. Our approach to budgeting needs to change. Mar, what says you? Last word.
It just goes down to what I was saying from the beginning, and I think Mustafa just get into the details of participatory budgeting, right? Budget preparation and planning must be bottom up. You need to consult the people, understand what their issues are, the core issues, like other countries are doing. Rwanda and the Latinos, right? Though their democracy is not perfect, but they have a very fantastic budget idea. If you go to Mexico today, a local council, right, they will put out their budget and ask the people to apply and propose a program that will be funded by the council. Now, the people will propose these budget programs, and then the citizens of that constituency will vote which program they want the council to fund. Now, every year, that's what they do, and year by year, those issues are addressing their issues. For example, in those part of the world, if they want a park, and the people vote for it, the council does not have any option but to fund it. So, that's what they call school participatory budgeting. I mean, participatory budgeting, it does happen in schools as well. So in our case, we might not have that perfectly done at the government level. But what should be done? There's 50 million that they're putting into Meet the People's Store. Give it to the ministries. If they give it to the ministry, the permanent secretaries, the planning unit, and you name it, they go out and engage the people at every single constituency, ward, region level. They document the needs of the people and they take it to cabinet. This will be a strategic way of developing a budget. The other reason why our budget does not address the issues of the people is because we don't have the data. Data collection in terms of how many people, even though we have it at the Gambia Bureau of Statistics, but how many people have, let's say, for example, cancer, and they need the cancer treatment medication or what have support. You put that in the budget. How many people are on dialysis? Why do we always have to have one CT scan? It breaks down, and then we have to look for another one. And this budget can actually get you more than 5 CT scans distributed across the region, and no one has to be struggling traveling in the night in this bad weather or road, and you keep having struggles before you actually get to your destination. Why do the country have 1 or 2 CT scans when you have a budget of 52.9 billion? So collecting this data is very important. A budget that is not data driven does not address the country's problem. It's just going to be a circle. You're just going to be doing the same thing. Right? It just keep you to be alive, but it doesn't advance you in any way to perform.
Thank you very much, Mal. Data driven. We have to put together a budget that actually addresses the problems of the average Gambian. Well, we're gonna stop here. We're gonna come back again. We're always gonna be having a
conversation. We have to be resourceful. We have to be purposeful and resourceful and create a community that works for everyone, not for few individuals.
Thank you, Mr. Sarayang. Well, most as we go, Demba was the 3rd anniversary of Pandiri's passing. I think Barka Demba.
Yes.
Just continue to rest in peace, my brother.
Oh, also, Pasamba, before I forgot, Banker's brother actually passed away last week.
Yes, his brother. Yes.
Yes, Banker's brother. So, Yalla, Pandiri, Yalla.
Very sad. That is his younger brother. I think he was 49. Was leading to 50.
Definitely. Just last week, he passed away. So
and that is the reality of the Gambia. They Haran,
Jale Mariama, and Jale the rest of the family.
Definitely.
And condolences to the family,
Definitely. We will be back next Sunday, inshallah.
Inshallah.
And hopefully the director of budget would answer to Musa's call. And Musa, I just wanted to say this here. Because some people what we try to do here on this program is to bring people with divergent views. Right. We try with government officials. Some of them have come here. They've been very receptive. But others, you call them, they will ask you, Kajla, and then you will not hear from them. Musa has tried reaching out to some, because he doesn't have such a sway. Maybe I have to step in to bring some of these people here. But what we try to do is to bring people here, and then at least so that they will be able to talk to the Gambians. And,
because really, we didn't want to come here today and just criticize the budget just out of a vacuum and say, oh, why did you spend this? Why did you spend that? Because to me, we're just tired of that kind of conversation. So that's why we said, let's bring in the people, the very people that work on it. Questions can be asked, they can be challenged, and they can explain. It helps everybody. But at the end of the day, if we just come here year after year, pass on, but
it's also your right. It's also your right to say as you please anyway. Also,
thank you very much.
If they don't want
bingo.
I mean,
bingo.
If they don't want, they can also go to their Facebook lives and say whatever they want.
I love that.
I mean, we sometimes we feel like we need to apologize to other people for saying our opinion. No, we don't. We say what we say.
The real boy of smartness from Baribu who keeps it real. That's it. That's it. He got the last one there. He's the real one.
Anyway, thank you to Marnyang. Thank you always, Mustafa. Somebody doesn't want me to call you that. We will be here next Sunday and we will be dealing with the issues. Divergent view. The only independent platform that is out there.
All right.
Today.
Okay.
No, I'm going to the
impress.
No, I'm going to the soccer field.
This is a guy. He has never touched a football in his life. So
can I say something here? Can I say something here, Saria? I'm the only guy on this platform who coached up to the highest level in Gambian football.
Excuse
me.
Well,
for me, I give it all to you. I mean, I have no idea about football. Do you ever see me talk about even scoring?
How can you? So you've never played football?
Well, I have no idea. I mean, except those times when you go into the field and play just like any other guy. But I've always known. I mean,
so let me ask you this though. I'm not trying to help Alaji Barrow here.
Yeah.
Do we ever have a great soccer player from
Badibu? I think Jadosi is from Badibu anyway.
Yes.
I think the Banjulians just take him and but we take ownership of him. So
well, Musa Barrow,
and that one we are not giving up on it.
Musa Barrow's entire family, mom is from Badibu, man. What are you talking about?
Okay.
And I think so. That too. Yeah.
No.
We have a fairly good list.
So let me ask you this way: has Badibu ever produced a Badibu-born citizen, not through the descendant of Badibu, but somebody who was?
We have to. I mean, this question. We need research. This question comes from. But I think the list is very long, but we need to do research and compile.
You would have named one already, but Jundu, I'm sorry. I was not trying to take.
But Jundu is a good player. What are you talking about?
Have we ever had
used to be good? He's just not a professional player.
Alaji Barrow played football in college here.
No. Alaji has never played football. He was just a soldier.
Alaji Mampile, Alaji Tofule.
If Alaji played football, he would have beaten somebody on the pitch. Alaji is a soldier. He's not a footballer.
Him and Dauda Cisse never play either.
Dauda doesn't even have the structure for it. It's more like me.
All right, guys.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
All right.
And, we will be back next Sunday, inshallah. Thank you.